Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the show today. Glad to have you in here for what is the 2nd of May. Going to have ourselves a little bit of comic book fun, and we'll give everybody a few minutes to pop up in here. But first things first, please go over to the YouTube channel, hit that like button, and share it out, please, so everybody can know what's going on. I'm going to do that myself right now. Hopefully, guys had yourself a good night, and let me know. I had mentioned in before that any kind of comic book characters or teams or even comic book companies that you'd like me to talk about to put that over in the Discord so I can kind of go through that and see what you guys are interested in, and we can put a presentation together for you. Nevertheless, I do want to have one today, and that's going to be fun, I am sure. But as I go through here and share, once again, hopefully you're doing the same thing. Hopefully you're having had yourself a really good day. I know for me, it's a really sunny, shiny day outside. It's not hot yet, so I'm happy about that. Hopefully your day was good as well. All right, so let me get this in here real quick, and there we go. All righty then. Another thing I'd really like to know if you guys can put up in the chat and put in the Discord as well. What are you reading right now? I know me personally, I'm reading more of a lot of indie stuff. I haven't really, it's kind of sad, but especially seeing as I'm a Marvel guy, right? I haven't really been reading hardly any Marvel at all, or DC for that matter. I really kind of need to push myself to do that, but I'm just really not enjoying what I've been seeing here of late. And the number of books that I'm interested even to pick up are becoming thinner and thinner. However, today at the end of the stream, we are going to take a look at what new comics are, and then maybe I can find something to, go ahead and get in there and read. But I have been enjoying indie stuff. And how about you? What you been reading? I see we got Roger over here. What have you been up to, and what have you been reading there, Roger? I know that one thing I really have to be happy for when we're talking about Mr. Mulrooney, Todd Mulrooney. Haven't seen him in quite a while. Don't know where he is really. But one thing I do appreciate from him is he really opened my eyes to the European comic book. They're much more, adult oriented, and they certainly aren't superhero based at all. But that doesn't matter because there's some really interesting stuff over there. Let's see here. Dave says that Vestry by Anvil Comics and Lords of Iron from Pocket Jacks, Preston Poulter. Yeah, I haven't spoken to Preston in a while either. Good on him with all his stuff he's working on. And of course, Vestry coming out of our very own, I don't know, where's he from? I think he's a Czech. Czech Republic. Yeah, it's so weird for me not to say Czechoslovakia. I have to shut my brain down not to say that. But yeah, there you go. And of course with him, his art there on Vestry, that's a guy who's improved really quick. Some really cool stuff coming out of that. And that is cool. That is cool. I haven't seen those. I haven't been to read the whole book though. We do got ourselves a Grimlock in here. Hey, Grimlock, how's your mic? Hmm.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
doing all right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. There you go. So, what have you been reading, Grimlock? What comics have you been putting down?
Uh, the last couple of comics that I have read was the new Ghost Rider, which
All right, yeah,
I was pleasantly surprised the way that's been going.
and that's the
Uh,
space one, right?
no, not Cos. I refuse to read Cosmic Ghost Rider. I thought the premise was stupid.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Um, and so far, surprisingly, the new She-Hulk has been good. The art's not good, but the story itself has been good.
Well, that's what's important, really, right? I am a person who's a stickler for art, but if the story's really good, I can accept lesser art, for sure.
Yeah,
It's good to hear She-Hulk's being written well because I do like me some She-Hulk. What's up there, Thundero?
Oh, nothing much. Nothing much. Just
What?
my blood pressure, but that
Well, so stop on the salts already.
Oh,
But
no.
we're talking about what you've been reading. You've been reading any comics lately?
Not lately. Let's see. The last comic I read was a European one that Booster gave me called
Yeah,
the
yeah.
oh, what the hell was it called now? Like the Traveler or something like that. It was pretty good.
Yeah, no, his European one's pretty good. I've been reading more. Like I was said earlier, before you popped on here, Todd Mulrooney had opened my eyes to European comics. I hadn't even really thought about them, right?
Yeah.
But there's some good stuff over there. You know what I've been reading recently, or at least kind of re-upping myself on, is the old Earth. What is that? 629, I think it was. I think that's the one. The one the Guardian of Galaxy eventually came out of. And I was just reminding myself of, wow, those movies aren't even close, dude. Not even close.
Oh, you're talking about the Vance Astro.
Yes, yes,
Ah,
exactly. Yes, yeah. The Vance. That's kind of a good way to put it. The Vance Astro timeline. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And boy, they did the whole thing with Starhawk over there. Of course, Starhawk being one of the kind of inceptions of the Guardians of the Galaxy, actually. But they did him wrong, though, didn't they? To get
Mhm.
melded
Amongst
with
many.
his well, they have melded together with his wife for over 1,000 years. They finally get separated, and what does she do? She just blows him off and goes start having having an affair with frickin' Vance, man. What's up with that?
Pretty fucked
Sucks,
up.
Can't
dude.
trust him, Chester. You can't trust him.
I
Yeah.
guess not, man. But I've been
It's,
reading that, so. But
I also, speaking of characters that have been done wrong, the Captain Marvel Marlica Rambeau trade,
hmm
I had finally got around to that, and just reading how far away they have gotten from when Roger Stern was writing her, it's just irritating.
wow, look what they're
It's
doing with
like,
Captain America right now. So
well, yeah.
I mean, it's
Well, as
not.
far as I'm concerned, Captain America isn't hasn't been Captain America for 10 years at least.
Yeah, they've been doing weird stuff with him, that's for sure. But well, like I said, they can do whatever they want. So can I. But the reason I brought up the I think it's 629 universes. I thought it's called the Guardians of the Galaxy universe or Advanced Astro. I'll go with Grimlock said. Is because you mentioned Cosmic Ghost Rider, and I do recall in that run, there was a Cosmic Ghost Rider in there as well on that coming out of the planet Haven, where humanity had survived the multiple alien invasions and absolute
Yeah.
destruction of the human race. But if you guys haven't read that whole line, you can find it online at various places, and it is interesting. It's a completely different storyline to what Marvel had done. I mean, it radically different. It builds itself up. It basically takes place 1,000 years in the future, and that's where the Guardians of the Galaxy came out of. It's an interesting read, though. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird and different, but it is right out there. I just don't know. Now I know they did something later with Guardians, with Peter Quill and Groot and all that kind of stuff, but boy, I mean, they just went such a weird, different direction with the movie than what's in the comic books. It's so outside.
Yeah.
But whatever. Dave says, "Have you heard what they did to Frank Castle now? Oh God. Well, he's problematic. Is that the word they use? Problematic? I think that's
Yeah.
the word.
That is
Yeah.
one of
That's
their
one of them.
favorite
Yeah,
words.
yeah. They've ruined that word, just like nuance.
Well, what happened to the
Just
word
like nuance.
troublesome?
Um, I don't know. It doesn't sound. Let's see. It doesn't sound academic enough, Chester. You see, these people's whole worldview relies on them sounding more authoritative than they are
hmm
because they're not actually intelligent. So they need vocabulary to supplement for their lack of deep thinking.
I see. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that makes sense. It does.
yeah, yeah.
But I don't know, Dave. Tell us, what did they do to Frank now? I know they took his guns away. They don't like his symbol. I know that. For some reason,
And
it's
Punisher
bad.
without guns is boring. I'm just gonna say it. Like that's kind of one of the coolest parts to me about Punisher is the gun porn in it. How
Yeah.
ridiculous some of his firearms are.
Well, he's a
Uh,
soldier. He's not a samurai.
yeah, yeah, he should be a soldier, and he should have soldiers' weaponry, which
Yeah.
is firearms, and
Sure.
lots of them.
It's Frank Castle. Yeah, that's right. Bazookas galore. Hmm. I do recall, now that I'm saying that, uh, there was a comic I remember reading way back where he's kind of having an interaction with the Daredevil and the Spider-Man, and him running to his little weapons van and grabbing a bazooka out. I do
Yeah.
recall that happening, and
Yep.
then people dodging. But I don't know, Dave. Tell us, what are they doing now? Any of you guys aware what they're doing to Frank now?
I'm sure it's nothing good.
I think from what I've seen, they're retconning him to make him seem like he was a psycho from when he was a kid, like
Oh, of course. Mommy and Daddy did it. Uh,
the
yeah.
continuing character assassination of Frank Castle.
Yeah, I get it.
Um,
We do have a predilection, Grimlock, of the parents being twisted. We see that a lot. Of course, the Kents, aren't like in Man of Steel, which overall I rather like that movie, to be fair. But there was a few points in there that someone needed to be slapped, mainly the German involved. But the Kents of all people being not actually incredibly good and honorable. I mean, the whole reason why Clark is Clark, right? Like, oh my God, recently, Thundero, they're desperate to make the Waynes bad.
Yeah, yeah, I've noticed.
Yeah,
They because the only thing I can assume is because white people bad.
I
Because they've given me
guess.
no other
Yeah,
reason for this weird, this new trope they've been on about making the Waynes some kind of villainous, making Thomas Wayne not, a philanthropist and everything that he's supposed to be.
he's a really good
Uh,
man, right? That was the
yeah,
tragedy of it. But at least
yes,
old Andy Serkis pulled it back in this last movie, though. Andy
yeah,
did.
yeah.
Andy was he
I, well, I
he
think,
stood up.
Reeves, from what I watched of that movie, he understands Batman probably better than anybody who's ever made a live action Batman. Because he knew where to play and then where to pull back, and he did it masterfully. That's how you subvert expectations in a movie like that. He did it beautifully. Every time I thought they were going to go a wrong
Yep,
direction, he pulled it right back.
that is
Pulled it
true.
right back.
That is true. Although they did leave old Martha out there hanging, though.
Yeah, a bit,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
bit.
But I do appreciate that because that would have been just once again making the Waynes less than what they were supposed to be, and it's kind of the point. And you talk about subverting expectations. One of the very few couple of words that old Pattinson actually speaks in the movie, because he doesn't say much, but he does say that the whole reason I did this was to honor his memory.
Yes.
And that's when
yeah.
Andy comes in and says, "Dude, he was a good man." Rah, rah, and he got into his whole thing. So they really did come back and push hard against that, and I do appreciate it.
I do
I
too.
I almost feel like this whole movie, the Batman, is, and it makes me suspect about Matt Reeves because it feels like many times they're like, yeah, yeah, we know what you think we're gonna do, but boom, here we are back on
Yep.
Batman, and
Yep.
it's like, hmm,
I like that. I like
yeah,
that. He did his homework. You can tell that the director, the writer, and the star did their homework because everybody brought their A game,
yeah.
in my opinion. I honestly
Well,
do think he's the best
I don't
version of
know why
Batman we
we
ever
didn't
had on
get
film.
that. Yeah, I don't know why we didn't get Catwoman getting rammed on a Batmobile though. That kind of would have been good.
You wish they would have filmed that, is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
would have been good. Uh,
well, the interesting thing is, and I've talked Thundero, other times about this, and I think part of it is growing up watching wrestling. Also, part of it is because we've seen this happen so much now
right.
that when we watch these movies, even movies like that we're pretty optimistic about seeing,
Hmm.
Mm,
that we go in and we're watching it and we're just going, okay, where's the swerve? Where's the bullshit coming?
Right.
yep,
And then when it doesn't happen, it's like, that was nice.
that's
More,
refreshing.
please.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's lately going to the movies for me, that's what it's been. It's been very refreshing because they're not trying they're not trying to subvert my expectation in what feels like a malicious way. They're doing it in a way that is pleasant, I guess you would call it. It's not offensive in any way, and I appreciate that. I don't like it when you take a character, let's say, Luke Skywalker,
Hmm.
and do things with Luke Skywalker that is a complete betrayal of everything that came before, and then tell us that we're some sort of bigot if we don't like it. No,
Well,
I
yeah,
don't. I don't appreciate
that's
that one bit.
that's
Mm-mm.
not
No.
Luke Skywalker. That's not what
Yeah,
he would do.
Luke
He's kind
is
of
not.
proven
I don't
proven.
care if Disney owns the rights to Star Wars or not. We own Luke Skywalker. The fans own Luke Skywalker. He's our character. George Lucas understood that. He understood that very well. That this is more. Yes, it's mine technically by law, but it was for the fans.
Well,
You know, he made the prequels. He made them for his kids, but he also made them for younger fans of Star Wars. He was very open about this. That was the goal of it.
yeah.
Now, whether or not he succeeded, that's a different topic, but his initial intention was for younger fans. And I think Disney has completely and utterly betrayed that original spirit.
Oh no, absolutely. And let me give you a very poignant and timely, example of that. Imagine the Fonz was a nerdy Jew that couldn't get laid.
Oh god, yeah.
Well, it's about the same,
Yeah.
right?
They just completely change somebody that's iconic in Western culture, especially American culture. For whole generations of people, like even I grew up watching the Fonz. You know, I was born after the show was off the air, and even I still grew up watching the Fonz. So it's a pretty good comparison. If
Yeah.
they just completely went back and decided to make the Fonz completely the opposite of what he was,
Yeah.
right? He's a total nerd who never gets laid, who can't, when he punches the jukebox, it just breaks more.
Right.
Like,
Right. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
completely betrays the character entirely. And they're like, see, well, you didn't see that coming. Well, you're right. I didn't because it's
Yeah,
stupid.
and
That's why.
bye. Thank
Yeah.
you. We don't need that. Dave says first episode of Superman's radio show from the 40s. They completely skip over Mom Pa Kent. Well, yeah, but keep in mind that although a lot of the elements were there from the beginning with that team that created Superman, those guys kind of came together in 33, and by 36 they had put a lot of the elements of that together.
Yep.
But it did take time for what we know as Superman to become Superman. It did take time, and although Mom and Pa Kent were certainly in the inception, it just took time for that, for it to develop. And actually, it's a really good example of something that grew lovingly over the years, as opposed to a lot of stuff we see together that had so much work beforehand that just kind of drop on you, and the canon is set from day one. Superman did develop. It was a developed character. So did Batman. A lot of stuff coming out of that time. Keep in mind, Batman was really a ripoff of the Shadow. I mean, he was jumping
Yes.
around. His costume looked very different. He was shooting people with guns. I mean, it was very much the Shadow. And as time went by, they kind of found their own little niche for him. And of course, he's the most marketable character you have right now, especially when he's
Hmm.
wearing a smoking jacket and on the outside of his uniform.
Right.
You know, a
No,
look at
it's kind of like
your
we were
icon.
talking about yesterday. Like, it's okay to make changes to a character. I don't think it's okay to make, well, obviously changes that far, but changes to an iconic character without being very cautious and very aware of what you're doing.
Yeah,
Um, like, if they had done all of that with Luke and they gave me a reason why Luke was like this now, just about anything, just something, not just he had a bad dream, which is literally what they said.
hmm,
I could have went with them if it was told well, but that's not what they gave us. They just gave us Luke gave up, he quit, he betrayed everything he stood for because he had a bad dream. That's it. That was
yeah.
it.
No, it's weird. Yeah, no. I mean, in general, who are you anyway to mess with someone's creation? If you
Yes.
wanted to put some kind of legacy character on it or something that's coming out of it and do your own thing with that, that's fine. Like the
Yeah.
thing with Jonathan Kent, for instance, Jonathan Samuel Kent, and the whole debacle with everyone upset about him being made gay. That doesn't bother me as much. Now, people aren't interested and it's failed. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
That's a different conversation. But that doesn't bother me as much because you have a character here. that is a legacy character, and they're trying to do their own thing with it. I don't really mind. I'm not interested to buy it, but I'm not angry about it. They didn't take Superman and do that like they did with Iceman. They made Bobby gay, even though
Literally,
he's
yeah,
been
literally forced him to be a homosexual.
right, even though he's been
Mind
nothing but a
raped him.
frustrated heterosexual forever. But not
Yeah,
only, but like your point there, Thundero, it isn't like he made that decision on his own. They took a character another character they screwed up, and forced him to be gay mentally through
yeah,
psionics. It's like
that's right.
what are you trying to say to us? I thought you were born that way.
I thought it wasn't a choice.
Yeah,
Apparently, it is if you're a psychic. If you're psychic, then it's a choice.
I
Apparently,
guess.
that's
I
what the
suppose.
message is.
Yeah. But I mean that right there is absolutely abysmal and hateful, right? What
Yes.
they done with Jonathan Kent is a design choice on a new character.
Yeah.
I so
I'd still say the intent is malicious,
fair,
but it's definitely less egregious than if they had done it to Kal-El.
sure. You
Uh,
see my
but
point.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I see. I actually agree. I think if you're going to do these things, you need to do it with new characters. When you take an established character and make radical changes to
yeah,
them, that is a betrayal of what you've been entrusted with by the
yeah,
fans and by the creators and by the company and everybody who's left you this thing, this heritage, because these characters are heritage legacy, have an actual legacy behind them. So if you're going to make changes, that's okay, but you need to make sure that they respect what came before. When
right.
you come out and you make radical changes to who they are and how they behave, that's a betrayal of not only the fans that love that character, but of the person who created that character. Now, if a creator does it, I guess that's their business. I still
That's
think it's
true.
stupid,
It is true. Yeah.
but they
Neil
shouldn't do that
Gaiman.
because they should be more like George Lucas and have more respect for the idea that this also belongs to the fans. Just like Mark Hamill did. Like, he was heartbroken what they did to Luke. He was
And
in
he's an
tears.
ultra liberal, by the way.
Yeah, he was in tears. Literally, I have the interview saved on this computer. He has tears in his eyes talking about how much it clearly broke his heart to play that
Yeah,
character that way.
yeah,
Because he gets it. He understands that this isn't just me. It's not just my role. It's not just Disney's. This is millions and a billion people at least love this character. I didn't realize how much I love Luke Skywalker till they did that to him. I didn't
yeah.
realize how
No,
important he was to me as a character.
it was shocking. Yeah, that's true. Grimlock, can we talk about for a minute how absolutely stupid Michael Bendis is? Can we?
Abs- Absolutely, and but going back to the John Kent thing, I know it's not as bad as doing it to Kal-El himself,
Right?
but Tom Taylor didn't create John Kent either,
No, and
and
that's
to
what I was
take
about to
this
get into.
character and to take this character, age him up specifically for this. There's no other reason to do
Yep.
this because in Super Sons he was what, like 8 years old.
Yeah, they were 8 or
So
10, something like that. Yeah.
so they slid up the timeline for no other reason than to do this. And on top of that, from the stuff that I have seen of it, not only is it ham-fisted, it's just boring.
Yeah, it's just
There's,
pure activism comic book. Yeah, there's nothing there. Yeah.
it's not. To be honest, it's not even. I don't even know if that's activism at this point. Where
Wow.
it's just like, dude, if you're gay, Tom Taylor, if you're gay, it's 2022, bruh. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Go get you some dick and be happy.
But here,
Like,
and that
you
that
don't
might
you
be
don't
the
need to you don't need to ruin a multi-million-dollar franchise to write out your fan fiction.
oh, I see. So
That's happening way too much these days.
you're suggesting that Brian Michael Bendis is using his own psionic abilities to teach Tom Taylor that he is gay. I get it. Okay.
Well, the funny thing is, outside of Injustice, what has Tom Taylor ever written that was well received?
Yeah, well, fair enough. But the reason I mentioned Bendis is because he clearly we were wondering why are they aging him up. Now we know, right? Because that's the only
Yeah.
reason they did it, which is stupid. It's stupid, right? But you know what
Yeah.
else is stupid? The hottest book that was selling at DC at that time, what was it?
Super Sons.
Super Sons. It was hot. People liked it. It was popular. It was selling like freaking hotcakes, and they cancel it because they got to make them again. They have to push their agenda. And not only did you lose money because people were really enjoying that comic book, me included, you lost one of your freaking legends. Because keep in mind, that debacle is what caused Art to leave and do his own thing, right? I mean, they a living freaking legend, RT Bear, left your company because of your stupidity.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, what are you doing, dude? Yeah, and
They're
and
just
it,
they're just dumb.
it is very
Like we
dumb.
said yesterday, and the new owner of everything said a level of competence, right?
Yep.
That they're incompetent. There's a lot of political stuff and whatever that we might not agree with, but I think for all of us, the most egregious sin is the lack of competence. Is the incompetence in their marketing, and the competence in their hiring, and the incompetence literally in their artists many times anymore. It's not acceptable from these companies, one of which has been around for almost 100 years.
Mhm.
It's just not acceptable. There's no reason much smaller European companies, much smaller Japanese companies should be able to outproduce you and outproduce you to quality, in quality. There's no excuse for that. And that's a lack of competence. No, there's no other way
Yeah.
to put it. It's the people in control are incompetent. They're not doing their job.
Yeah. No, it's
Simple as
true.
that.
And we've seen a lot of characters molested to the point that their popularity is gone, right? It's
Yep.
not just that. That's a very good example because they were selling that comic. It was selling really well, right? Another
Yes.
one
Yep.
that's not as poignant would be Squirrel Girl. Now, if you guys remember, Squirrel Girl was this weird little thing that was kind of this. It's almost a MacGuffin, it really is what the character was. And she'd pop up here and there and she'd kick anybody's ass. That was the joke, right? And it was this cool little character that had been around for quite a long time. And then they turned her into a down patient syndrome person.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, first of all, that's insulting. You know, I don't know where your activism is with that. But that character's no one's talking about that character or cares about that character anymore. And it's a shame because it was this cute little, like I said, like a MacGuffin type character that would pop up from time to time, but that they've just wiped it away. It's not as poignant as Super Sons, I know, but point taken, right? So
Chester, I know this is CNT, but there's a big hullabaloo right now because apparently somebody leaked an internal blog or something, internal writing, like a memo, basically, from the Supreme Court, which is a big no-no, that they're getting ready to effectively overturn Roe versus Wade.
oh wow, well,
Yeah,
well, someone's in trouble.
yeah.
Um, but these activists, they don't really understand the law applies to them too. Yeah, but
Hopefully they're about to.
Well, to be fair, though, Roe versus Wade should have never existed. That's the Supreme Court
Correct.
making law, and that's not their job. The Those kind of decisions should always be at state level. Those kind of things,
Yes.
even with gay
Yeah.
marriage, which is something that there's very few people that actually care. But all
Yeah.
that stuff should be done at state levels for sure. There's way too much, but we got the same thing with old Biden trying to, once again federalize things with his pen, and oh man, whatever. But yeah, no, I'm not surprised. Are you?
No, I'm surprised it took this long, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I mean it.
Um,
I find it funny after the affirmative action judges come on that two things that the activists were not in favor for have now seemingly have come to pass.
Mhm. Yeah, well, it really should be a state issue, though. I mean, not getting into the conversation of what's your side on it, or where do you take? It's not even that. It should be a state issue, and that's one of the great
Yes.
things about the system that America has. Um, with everything, like for instance, if you're a pothead and you like smoking pot, well, don't live in Texas. Go live in freaking Colorado. What are you doing,
yep,
right?
real easy. That was
It's
the
very
idea of
simple.
federalism. If you don't like the laws here, go live there. Now, yes, that's easy to say. Some people it's hard to do. I get that. But listen, life's hard. So if you want to live a certain way, is it not worth striving for? I don't under the idea that it's hard to do. That's not really an argument because nothing's easy. What are you talking about? It's hard to do. Of course, it's hard to do. It's maybe you could say it's not fair. So what? So what? Who told you life had to be fair? Where did you get that idea?
Yeah,
Because I can tell you, nature ain't fair. Nature's a bitch. She
that's
don't give
true.
a damn about fair.
She wants you dead. That's what she wants.
Yes.
Roger, no, basically what it means is overturning it means it goes back to the states instead of the
Yeah. It's not
federalization
gonna,
of it. Yeah.
by and large, it's not going to really change much. It'll just, well, I
Yeah,
mean,
it
it'll
won't
cause a
change
big
much.
uproar,
Yeah.
but it's not going to change much on the books because pretty much every state has some form of legalized abortion. I think every state does, in fact, have
Yeah, they
legalized
do.
abortion on the books.
Yep.
So it's really not going to change that much. It would allow some states to push further than what they've pushed already in,
Yeah.
as far as limiting abortion. But again, like you just said, listen, if that's the way you want to live, if you want that quote unquote right, don't live in that state.
Yeah, yeah.
It's simple as that.
I
Just
don't
don't live in that state.
I don't think you'll see much change at all. You might see a little bit more stringent laws in some of the more conservative states, but I don't think it'll change much at all
But
because
the people
everyone
there want that.
understands. Well, yeah, it depends on what the people want, and of
Yeah.
course, when you bring things down to a state level, your vote counts a lot stronger than it does federally, right?
Yes.
But you know,
See, here's what somebody talk about gay marriage. Here's the reason. There's two reasons I was against it. One is because I don't think traditionally it's accurate, but that's irrelevant because two, the Supreme Court and the government at all should have no say in such things. The only reason they do is because of antebellum Southern laws
yeah.
that made it illegal for whites and blacks to get married.
Do you
That's
want to
why that
get me
exists.
on
That's
my
why they have
Democrat
that
roll
power.
again? Is that what you're trying to do?
That's literally why they have that power, and other states followed suit. Just like driver's licenses are a very similar thing. That wasn't always the rule. It was started, I don't remember where, but in one of the states started it originally, and it just spread from there. Um, these sorts of things, like marriage licensing and stuff, the Supreme Court should have struck down a long time ago because it's obviously unconstitutional for them to be involved in any
Yep.
form of religious ceremony like that. And it is a religious ceremony.
And
But because the left is so anti religious, they won't come at it from that angle because they could win from that angle, but they won't do it.
right,
And the right's obviously not going to do it because they're all for it. But the left, you see, the left is the one who's supposed to be against the institution of religion. That old separation in church and state thing,
right.
which is the Constitution. But I
Right.
digress.
Well, no, and I imagine you're going to see a lot of stuff out of this Supreme Court that does that. And what they're going to do, they're not going to say this is illegal or illegal. They're going to say this was never our venue anyway, and
Yeah,
just
we don't
throw
have
it
this
back.
power.
Yeah, they said this isn't
Right.
something we should be involved with. So they're not going to be making law at all. They're simply going to be
They
walking
did
back.
that in Oklahoma. They effectively gave a huge chunk of Oklahoma back to the natives, back to the tribes there, on paper anyway. Obviously, the state's still there,
Right.
and they negotiated with them, and everything's fine as far as I know. But yeah, I mean that's a pretty radical decision when you think about it. They effectively gave away a big chunk of one of the American states.
Yeah, they have no right to do such things. Although,
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily against natives getting certain lands back, particularly
sure.
Black Hills stuff, because of all but that's a different conversation. But you're right, it's not for the Supreme Court. And this is what the push has been, because the problem is you can't know that because the Democrats and the stupid lies they make on a constant basis. What the push has been from even before Trump was to bring the Supreme Court back to being constitutional.
Correct.
That's
Yes.
that's what
That
they're
is what
trying to
Roberts
do.
has been doing. If you
Yes.
pay attention, if you look at it and look at it from that lens, you'll understand that that's what Roberts has been trying to do
Yeah.
by and large. Now, he's screwed up a couple times, more than a couple, but he has screwed up a few times. But if you look at the breadth and width of his decisions and his opinions, it's clear that that's his goal. He's a federalist. He's a hardcore
Yeah.
federalist, and that runs afoul of both sides on a regular basis because they want federal power to dictate to others what they can and cannot do. And he tries to be relatively neutral in that regard. If you just look at his decisions, it's not me. I don't even like Roberts, by the way. I'm one of those right wingers who wish I could use the federal government to get my way. But the Constitution's the way it is, and it's the law of the land. And the Supreme Court's job is to make sure people like me and people on the left that have the same opinion can't use the power of the federal government in that manner. And
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, as long as it's neutral, as long as it's right down the middle, right? That the axe lands in the middle. If it doesn't, then it's a problem. But that's what Roberts has been doing, by and large. And he's been doing it for pretty much his whole run. He's been trying to return power to the states as much as he can. And he's been largely successful, to be honest, which is a good thing. I think a federal A return to federalism would be effectively the same thing as a national political divorce if we really did it hard and strong and like it used to be. And I think everybody'd be happier in that system. I really do. Because
Yeah.
your super liberal people would sort themselves into super liberal places, and your super conservatives would sort themselves into super conservatives, and everybody in the middle would sort themselves into places that are in the middle. And everybody be happy.
Yeah.
This has happened before in our country multiple times, and it will happen again if we just let it. That's all you got to do is just let it, and people
Well,
will sort.
I will say you do need to work on your Bernie Sanders impersonation, though. That was a little off. You know.
No, my mouth
Uh,
is full of. I'm very hydrated
it's a
today,
good
Chester.
thing.
I don't know. I've been drinking too much, and I've been very hydrated, so I've got a lot of juice in my mouth when I speak. Got a lot
I
of
get it.
spit.
Yeah, but I am going to move on from that. But we'll keep an eye on it, of course, because that could be a big topic. But it was always funny to see how many people were Bernie Sanderites.
Yes.
Because it's like, have you listened to him for more than 30 seconds? I mean, have you?
No.
Because he's a really dumb socialist that's never had a goddamn job or responsibility in his whole life.
Yep.
And then on top of all the bullshit he spouts, he owns how many houses? Yeah. Anyway, Bernie Sanders. Anyway,
I
you
think
guys ready?
4.
Are you ready? I'm ready.
I am.
We're going to get
I
into
think it's
it.
4, by the way, Chester. I think 4 is the magic number.
I think it was 7. Think he owned. Maybe he sold some. But Dave says Juicy Thundero. Fair enough. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get into our stuff today. We're going to start out with our comic book showcase, of course. This one's going to be a little long, guys. So feel free to jump in and give opinions and such. You don't have to let me rattle the whole time, okay? But let me go ahead and get this up. And oh well, let me see. I got to do this first. Hold on a second. Here we go. Can I do that? Let me see if I can do that this way. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Boom. Easy enough. All right, and I'll have to switch over a second time, but that's all right. That's all right. Okay, it'll work out just fine. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get into this now. Today, I think I threatened it last week, and Grimlock certainly reminded me of it. I was already on it, but we are going to be talking about the man himself. But I thought I'd do something a little bit different today, guys. I thought I'd talk about the generalization that is the Kryptonians. Now, great piece of art here showing all the different ones, good and bad, here together. It's Alex Ross, of course, uh, but you know I'm an Alex Ross fanboy, and it is what it is. But so I thought we'd talk a little bit about the Kryptonians and, in general, about what they can do and who they are and stuff like that. Now, of course, we're looking at what 80 years of history here, more than 80. Of course, we have Siegel and Schuster are the ones who kind of got this thing kicking off. Like I said, uh, they came together in 33, I think. Something like that is when they first met, and they kind of developed their stuff and they went forward with it. But uh, uh, they had done some early stuff with Superman. Of course, he ended up in a newspaper strip. Did you guys know that?
Yes, I
Yep,
did.
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. And even back in these days, he was coming from Krypton. And it's kind of interesting little thing I put up here for you guys to read. But it is revealed that Kryptonians had evolved to the ultimate peak of human perfection. There are images showing Kryptonians jumping through air as Superman does on Earth. It can be assumed by early depictions of Superman's parents all having his powers of super leaping on Krypton. Now, I'm going to try to get into a few different things here, talking about it today. But one of the things that's very different about Krypton is it is a little bit of a harsh place to survive, but it's also sits under a red sun. And we see many interpretations of Superman under a red sun being very, very weak, but that's not the common interpretation. He's still superior to the average human under a red sun. He's just not Superman, right? But and this kind of gets into before I get into all this stuff. I kind of rather like the idea that Kryptonians are super-ish from the get. I rather like that. Another thing I really enjoyed that I've seen you've seen this pop up a few times in the comics over the years, but if you guys remember the Man of Steel there, Schneider's Man of Steel, there was a couple little hints in it, and there was like a comic book that came out with it, which was talking about the Kryptonians visiting Earth in the really distant past, and the implications of that comic book particularly were that all the gods and humans and even the metahuman inside the DC Comics, all came out of these initial Kryptonians living on Earth. I kind of like the circular thinking of that. What do you guys think about that idea?
Would make sense considering he looks just like a human.
He does.
Well, I guess humans look just like him, technically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. I don't hate that idea. I don't hate it at all.
I like it. I actually rather like the idea. But I don't know that there is any official canon on that, however. Nevertheless, these guys created arguably the most iconic character of the 20th century.
Yeah, I
I
would
mean,
say. I wouldn't even say it's arguable, to be honest.
well,
I'd say he probably wins. You can go literally to every corner of this planet with that S on your shirt, and people know what it is.
it's true.
Literally.
It's true.
There is nowhere you can go besides maybe some super remote backwater tribe who's never met anybody. Other than that, anywhere that has any form of civilization, they will know what that S means.
Mhm.
They'll at least recognize it, even if they don't know Superman. They know that symbol, and I think that is something that can't be understated.
Yeah.
For as far as his power and his influence as a character, and I really love that. One of the reasons why Superman's been so important, I think, to the whole world, but especially to Americans,
Mhm.
is because he represents, in a lot of ways, I mean, obviously he's a messianic allegory,
Sure.
but also he is an aspiration, right? They call him the man of tomorrow for a reason. This is what we want to be. We want humanity to go to this level. Not necessarily superpowers, that'd be great, but his real superpower, his heart, his courage, his virtue.
Yeah.
He's incorruptible. That is what he represents. Everything else is more, the superpowers and all that stuff is more, for show and for panache. But the thing that makes Superman special is that he is a Superman even if he doesn't have those powers. That's just who he is. He is a man of pure virtue and righteousness who always strives to do the right thing no matter the cost. And that is what humanity should aspire to. That is what a hero should be. A man of action, a man of courage. We didn't have one really, at least not at the time especially, and definitely didn't have one that was as ubiquitous as Superman became in America. He's our Hercules, if you will.
Yeah.
He's that level of important to our culture that even people who don't care about comic books know and respect Superman.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Even with the Savages, though, I would say they have the idea of the Ubermensch. But
Yes.
I don't think there is an ancient, in your point, Greek, example or equal to what Superman is. Most of them are pretty human and flawed.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Well, that too, yeah. Well, it's a different take on what a hero. The idea of heroism has evolved
Sure.
because it used to just be about boldness, effectively, just somebody who would go do things that others would never dare.
Bravery. Yeah.
Yeah, we kept that obviously, but we also added Christian virtue in the West as well.
That's true.
And those things are both they're considered, well, bravery is considered one of the great virtues because I think we just evolved as a society. We became much more as we became more decadent, I guess you would say. We became much more virtue became more important because it became more of a choice. See, there was a time where you didn't have a choice but to be brave, otherwise you would starve, right? Like
Right.
you had to go out there and hunt the big creatures and get out there in the wilds, and you had to go be a little bit daring, or else your life would be very short and miserable.
And war was
Now we
kind of
don't
like
really have to do that.
the sport of the day as well.
Yeah.
So you had
Yes.
to kind of deal with that. But you mentioned messianic, and of course, as Superman is a modern retelling of Jesus, it's really a modern retelling of Moses. Of course, Jesus was a
Yes.
modern retelling of Moses at that time, right?
Right.
So and there all the elements are there. Just think about him in his little rocket, his little basket, as he's on the river of ocean. In the space river, and et cetera, et cetera. It's very much Moses, and they even said that this wasn't hidden, right?
Right.
But anyway, so we have the inception here of Kal-El, but more importantly, the Kryptonians, because it has gone well beyond Siegel and Schuster to become its own living thing in good and bad ways, to be sure. But of course, Krypton, very interesting place over the years. We've gotten lots of different bits of information. The only problem I have with it is it's really inconsistent, right?
Mm.
As to what Krypton was like, what life was on. The only thing we really know is this: the Kryptonians are basically humans, right? Like I said, the circular thinking they've tried to kind of pepper in here or there. I like it. I wish they'd go more that way. And they were highly technologically advanced, which, of course, by doing that, they put themselves in problems, into a difficult situation because, all right, well, if they're so technologically advanced, well, how do they all end up getting wiped out on a single planet instead of just going to other planets? Right. And
Mhm.
they've tried to solve that in several ways. From the simple initial idea where Jor-El told them and they laughed at him. Okay. He's one of your greatest scientists, but yet you laugh at him when he says, dude, we're all going to die. That's weird. To some space entity had imprisoned the Kryptonians on Krypton, right? All kind of craziness to try to fix the logical mistake of it. But however you look at it, Krypton's gone, and the various elements of it float around in space, and the different colored pieces of Krypton can affect Superman in different ways. Not just green stuff; they got black stuff and red stuff,
Yep.
right? Kryptonite, of course. But there is an interesting little thing. I want to start this thread as we go through here. People for decades, I would say, have been trying to figure out the science of Superman. Yeah, I know. I get it.
Yeah.
It's a comic book, but people are people. Fan fiction is fan fiction. Theorizing is theorizing. And unless you're a dickhead and you have a round head and your name's fucking Ryan Johnson, let people do their frickin' theorizing, jackass.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, talk about he literally mocking people. All right, don't get me on that sideline, Thundera. What are you doing? All right.
You're
Uh,
doing it to yourself.
I know. But but
Working
uh,
into a lather even.
yeah, I know, right? But nevertheless, um, here we sit today, and we have a limited number of Kryptonians left, in a way, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But the science of Superman is really you can't nail it down because technically, Superman, if you see the way they've calculated his strength, it's as if the power in his fist is equivalent to taking a planet and smacking you with it. That's the
Yeah.
power level we're dealing with Superman, right? And if any human, or not human, just any being had that level of power within such a small space as a body, they would effectively be a black hole just floating around. They
Right.
would just everything would be destroyed around them, right? So the science doesn't work.
Sounds very
However,
godly.
well, it is very godly, and
Yeah.
we'll get into a couple of theories. The reason I'm mentioning that now is because one of the best theories I've heard, and like I said, this is just the people are just having fun. Don't take it too seriously. But one of the best theories I heard was the fact that because the kryptonite is quite radioactive and dangerous, not only to Kryptonians but to everyone. Kryptonite will kill you too, right? That because their bodies developed on this planet under in a harsh condition with this even though it's deep underground, this is just constant radiation emanating into him. It's the kryptonite itself is what makes the Kryptonians powerful, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. But I thought it was an interesting little theory. However,
It's
I
interesting.
thought, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said that is interesting.
It is,
It's
yeah,
interesting. I wanted to touch on this real quick as we're talking about how he's a messianic figure and he's an allegory for Moses slash Jesus basically, or the Messiah because they were Jewish. Um, his name Kal El means effectively, if you do a direct translation, the voice of God. I find that just a fantastic little piece of obviously intentional thing that they've done there.
sure.
Um, I just think it's very interesting how much in his cosmology, even in his very name, there is references to God or gods in general. They knew what they were creating, and they knew they did it deliberately,
Oh
and
yeah,
it worked.
it
And
did.
I find that beautiful, to be honest.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a little bit on the nose, if you ask me.
Yep.
However, what I want to do here is I want to go through some of the prominent Kryptonians. I'm not going to deal with every freaking Kryptonian. That would be here for months, trying
Yes.
to talk about all of it. But I want to go through some prominent ones and talk about them a little bit. And Grimlock, keep in mind you can pop in and say whatever you want to say anytime, right? So let's
Mhm.
get into our list here, and then we'll kind of get into we'll use Superman as a look at what Kryptonians can do, right? So let's start out here. You ready? Crypto.
Ready.
Crypto.
Ah, Crypto.
Now
Everybody's favorite super dog.
he is a nice super dog, and I'm telling you, I'm looking forward to the Super Pets movie. It looks fun. I'm really
It does
looking
look fun.
forward to that. It looks fun. But crypto is an interesting thing. I'm not sure if everyone really knows the origin of crypto. But basically, Jor-El, and he'll pop up in this a lot because he's kind of the inception of everything, Jor-El, right? But
Yep.
Jor-El, he knew that they were all going to die. I don't know why he just didn't take his entire family and extended family and just leave the planet. I don't know. Okay. But whatever. He wanted to test the rocket to make sure his son would be safe. So he took the family frickin' pet, which also looks very Earth-like, doesn't it?
Yes.
And put it in a damn rocket and sent the thing off, to test. I mean, my God, my kids would kill me if I did something like that with our puppy.
Kryptonian dog just happens to look exactly like an Earth dog.
Right,
Fascinating.
right, right, right. Which is why I like the circle thinking here 80 years later, right? But
Yep.
nevertheless, and of course, it did work, and crypto survived. And but he, of course, which has happened several times, his little rocket pod got knocked off course a little bit, and he didn't show back up until we had the Adventures of Superboy, where Kal-El was a teenager. And of course, since they've been together, they're inseparable, and he's got his pup. But the interesting thing about crypto is all the things that apply to the Kryptonians in general apply to him too,
Yep.
right? So yes, he has heat vision. Yes, he has X-ray vision. He has all those things, right? Because he is Kryptonian. But it is kind of interesting how they and understand that the DC people leaned on the idea of a capsule being knocked off its trajectory to kind of drop Kryptonians in at different times in Kal-El's life. It's a recurring theme, Grimlock.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes, I noticed.
yeah, yeah. But crypto. And I always enjoyed. And there was a little animation cartoon I remember my kids had watched. So it must have been quite a while ago. Called Crypto Superdog, I think it was what it was called, and it was cute. It was cute. I think it had a good theme song. It was like Crypto Superdog or something like that. But anyway, let's move on here. But I thought I could not include crypto. I couldn't do it.
Of course.
Yeah,
Of
he
course.
he had to be in here. So anyway, let's move on to the next one. Controversial, I know. Uh,
JSK.
yeah. This is the new iteration. This is a very new character. I understand that there are other characters I could have put in here instead, but I thought it is important because it is the official, official, not some because I didn't put any of the TV show spin-offs or any of that kind of stuff in this list. This is pure comic today, right? So
Hmm.
he is the official son of Superman and Lois, right?
Yeah.
So he had to be in here. And it's also how he came to be. Keep in mind, they didn't twist this character till later. You made that point, Thundero, that that wasn't their creation anyway, and you're right. Right, because Jonathan here came to be during the Convergence event, right? And of course, Lois was in danger. Obviously, she's having a super baby. How could she possibly survive that? Babies kick, you know.
Mm.
I mean, but of course, he was able to keep his family safe, and of course, the whole thing with the Flashpoint event, and he got the Flash to help him and all that kind of. If you read the story, you know. But he and of course, Superman actually delivered his own son, which is kind of interesting. But I know this is a controversial character, but as you see, I chose a picture of him when he was still cool. Yeah.
Well, I would say he was never cool, but that's me. I don't like domesticated Superman. I think it's dumb. I think it
Eh.
destroys the whole purpose of the character to domesticate him. It, I just don't like it. I've never liked it. I didn't like it in like the TV shows where him and Lois get married and
Sure.
stuff. I don't. Superman should not be domesticated at all.
I get that,
Just
but there's a lot of people who do, though.
yeah,
So.
those people. Listen, Chester, you're allowed to be wrong. It's
It's
okay.
true. It is true. It is true. But I put him in here because I think it's a valid character that should be part of the Kryptonian list, even though he's only half Kryptonian. To be
Yeah.
fair, which is I think another thing they were really excited about and why they chose this character because the one thing I've noticed when it comes to these woke tards, they don't like a powerful Superman. They want a
No.
weakened down, powered down one, and this is a perfect tool for them because he'll never be anywhere near his father, right? So,
Yes. Yes, and that's a serious problem for me too, because I like a powerful Superman. I like the idea of him being a walking cataclysm, but he controls it. Because you see, that's what a virtuous man is.
yep,
A weak man who can't hurt anybody anyway. It doesn't. There's no virtue in not hurting people. But
no.
someone like Superman, who could destroy everybody on a whim and doesn't, that's a powerful man. That's a righteous man,
Well, which you
and
mentioned is
that's
what
why I
we
think it's
call a
important.
feminist blogger.
Yes. Yes, and that's why I think it's important for him to have godlike power, to have obscene,
Yeah.
vulgar levels of power, but you almost never see it because he maintains his composure at all
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, and we'll get into that later. That's kind of part of my summing up of it as well. Do me a favor, Grimlock, Thundero, if you guys can keep an eye on the chat because I can't. I'm so far away from it, I can't see it. I have no
Sure
way
can.
to see what they're saying, and if anyone says anything potentially interesting,
Well,
except Eric.
Dave really wants you to know about kryptonite cock rings. I don't
Oh,
know. Did you? I mean, maybe we don't need to hear from the chat. I'm just saying.
all right. Well, you know, yeah, you go ahead and
Oh,
manage that. Okay. Now the next one, I'm going to move on here. But the next character I put in, I don't know if it's controversial or not, but I thought it was odd, and I wanted to put it in because it's an actual Kryptonian, a real Kryptonian, I guess. Valzad. Now,
real
Valzad,
quick,
yeah.
real quick. Somebody asked, Q was crypto question. Sorry, was crypto based on? I think that's pronounced Laika, the Russian astro dog. I
Uh,
believe so. I believe that's
Cosmo.
what they got the idea
Yeah,
from.
that's probably is where they
Yeah,
got the idea from. Yeah, I would imagine. But yeah, and of course, the Marvel has Cosmo, which is once again based on that same incident, right? That same
yeah,
dog, right? Yeah, yeah, that's true. But it also has a little bit of hints of Rin Tin Tin and Lassie and stuff like that as well. Those
yeah.
things were very popular at that time. I grew up watching them myself. But I like Rin Tin Tin better than Lassie personally. Grimlock's probably a Lassie guy, I would assume. Nothing.
Lassie, yeah.
Nothing.
He's muted.
Okay,
The
good.
moment.
No positive or negative towards Lassie. She's just kind of there.
Yeah, well, she, she saved the day a lot. Lassie was
Yeah.
cool.
He did.
But
It's true.
anyway, Valzad. Valzad, same thing, saved by a little pod. He's mainly an Earth 2 character. We're going to be jumping between Earth 1 and Earth 2 quite a bit. But with the convergence events and the various things like that, who knows who's where anymore, right?
Right.
Because it's all convoluted. But he is an Earth 2 guy, and he came. And one of the interesting things about him is his training when he was in the pod was extremely pacifistic. So this is the most pacified Superman you'll find, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's very anti-violent guy, so which is interesting. It's different, right? But the interesting thing to me, that he is a Zod. Okay. And he was an orphan just like Kara and a few others, which I won't really get into some of those outside ones so much today. But yeah, I don't know how he's a Zod. I'm not 100% sure. But then again, the Kryptonians do have very high technologies. Yeah.
It's
Maybe
true.
he was adopted. I don't know.
That would make more sense. How is there black Kryptonians? Like, is
I've
that
never
ever
seen
explained, or are we
one.
just supposed to accept it because of something diversity, something blah
I
blah 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 blah?
guess. Yeah,
Ah,
it is. It doesn't make sense, especially because you only have this one example, really.
yeah.
But the thing, though, if you ever read Val in a comic book, it's not a bad character, really.
No, he's
It's
he's
not.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, he doesn't suck.
yeah, he doesn't suck at all. I love this costume. So
Yeah,
it
I like the
is.
costume a lot too.
Yeah, yeah.
I
It
think Superman's costume's iconic, and we should leave it be. But when you're going to do other Kryptonians, you can play with it a little bit, and you can do some pretty cool stuff. Like, I think that one's really good.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Earth 2 is a really messed up place.
Yeah,
It's really messed up. But anyway, but Val, you got to put Val in there because, like I said, if you never read one of the Val comics, go read it because he's handled pretty well. Now, I don't know how much Grimlock, how much Superman stuff have you read over the years?
Not much. Like I don't hate him, but he was not my cup of tea. I've probably watched more Superman than read Superman.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's fair. But I put
Outside of
Val in.
Steel, I don't have a run of Superman anywhere.
Oh, that's okay. I'm the big Superman guy here anyway. But
yeah.
and I do love me some Superman. I've read a lot of it. But like I said, I put it in here because he is a Kryptonian, and I didn't mind his comic. I would suggest you go read some Val's actually. His Valzad stuff is pretty cool. But anyway, moving on. Now, this is more of a catch-all category here. The next one, but I think it's important to talk about because this list is kind of short, right? But
Right.
not really. Yeah. The Bottled
Ah,
City of Candor. I don't know how many are in there. At least tens of thousands.
yeah,
So potentially you have some pretty explosive power applicable to be applied. And of course they did that in the comic book. If you follow the storylines, they went when the finally this did get out of the bottle. This city got out of the bottle. But I'm not going
yeah.
to get into that Elseworld stuff. But it was interesting. And when I was a kid, there's a lot of good Saturday morning cartoon stuff or even after school stuff. And of course, the Super Friends was a show that I loved as a kid. It's perfect for little kids. And there were several episodes, and later on animations as well, when you had Superman and Superman by himself, and that kind of the Batman the animated series run that went on for so long, all the way up to Young Justice, right? There were several times where the Candorians would come out flea-like out of the bottle and help save the day. I always thought that was kind of cool. But any kind of comments on the Candorians?
It's a cool idea.
Mm,
Um, that's one of the things I've always loved about Superman and about his own little bubble in DC is there's a lot of really cool stuff like this
yeah,
that doesn't really get as much attention outside of the comics. Like his Fortress of Solitude, he has all kinds of cool stuff in
Yeah,
there, just
that's true.
cool stuff,
Polar bears.
and yeah, just all kinds of really interesting like technology and relics, and I guess you would consider this a relic. Uh, from his exploits all over the universe, just interesting things, and I really like when we get to like in the comics or in like the movies or whatever, the animated shows and things, and even the comics where they show more of the fortress, right? He gets to go around and
Yeah,
almost give you like a guided tour and stuff and show you some of the cool things he's collected. And I don't know. I just think it's a neat little tidbit, neat little world building thing they can do that is kind of only works with Superman because he's Superman, right? Because he's
yeah,
Kryptonian and because he can go all over the universe pretty much whenever he wants. Uh, I think that's something that's unique, relatively unique to him, at least in DC, and I appreciate it every time we get to see it. And Candor is one of those places it's a really cool idea, right? So
it
it's a
is.
it's a city miniaturized, put into a bottle, literally a bottle, and it's just probably a million people. Who knows how many people living inside this little bottle
Somebody
that he
knows, I
watch
guarantee you.
yeah that he watches over and protects because well we don't know if they
Right.
got out from the bottle and at that size would they have superpowers? Are they superpowered in there, or are they just normal people
No,
in
they
there?
are. They are super powered. Yeah, they are.
Oh,
Because
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Um.
couldn't remember. Um,
Yeah.
but regardless, my point is it's still just a really neat little concept that
It
he
is.
literally gets to play effectively God to these people because he protects them and he keeps them, safe. And he does try for a very long time to fix Candor and try and undo it.
And they
But of
do
course, only
eventually.
Brainiac has that technology.
Right.
It's just a cool idea. Like this is what I want from comic books. This is why I want comics to go back. I want them to go back to that weird era that a lot of people like. I basically the Silver Age. Go back and try really weird stuff again. Just
Yeah.
weird things
Yeah.
that we're not expecting. Not political things. Not we're gonna make this character this race or gay or whatever. No, cool stuff like Candor. You can do it. I believe in you, DC. Give me something cool that Superman has just collected that he has to deal with a problem with.
Sakura.
That would be sweet.
Arigato. No, I agree. And of course, once again, he did mention Brainiac is the one who miniaturizes. One of the things he does in collecting his knowledge. But there were a couple examples of bottling that I thought was really cool in DC Universe Online. There's a whole section of the city is trying Brainiac's trying to bottle, and you have to interact with that. That's kind of neat. There was a TV show that dealt with the Candorians directly, which I thought was pretty cool. I forget which TV show that was, but there also, and I know this is sacrilege to talk about, but the New 52, because I still contest that started out really good. It started good. I understand it went in a weird direction, but there's one of the early New 52 stuff where Metropolis is getting bottled, or at least a section of it. And you actually have Lois and many of the other kind of characters that are bottled. It's an interesting little run they did. And Steele's up in there with Superman. And I liked what they were doing with it. But anyway, the Candorians. This is potentially an incredibly powerful break of the balance, though, right?
Yes.
Because of
Yeah.
course there are bad people in there. Obviously,
Yeah.
some are bad, right? Yeah, it's and I'm surprised they left it on the shelf. That was a joke. For so long, to be honest with you. This is what he's talking about with the Silver Age. Also, was a time in comics where you had this kind of collection thing, like in the Fortress of Solitude or Batman's Cave. They were kind of into that. I don't know why at that time, but they were. So you did see kind of heroes who had kind of collections of stuff. I like it too. I like it. Anyway, let's move
Yeah.
on. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's my girl.
There she is. There's the best one. And
Yes.
yes, it's because of her tits. You want me to lie and tell you it's not? Because I won't do that. Boobies win. They always do.
Yep.
It's unfair, But boobies win,
They do. That is true.
just the way
Uh,
of the world.
but to be fun, now this of course is this is Kara Zor-El. Now I understand that they did the L instead of the EL. Okay, Earth 2. This is Earth 2 stuff. And of course, Earth 1 has the Supergirl, Kara, and Earth 2 has Power Girl, Kara, right?
Yes.
Same person, right? Now, I do believe in these days, I don't know what the hell
One
DC's
is
doing
way
now.
hotter than the other.
Oh my
But
God,
yeah,
dude, yes. But one is also a bit older than the other.
yes,
I do believe these days that Power Girl is in Earth 1. I'm not sure where
she
it
is. Yeah,
stands right
I'm
now.
pretty sure they moved her over after Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Right.
She was one of the characters who stayed.
Sure. And she and Supergirl, excuse me, she and Supergirl don't always see eye to eye. They kind of fight sometimes.
Yeah,
I understand, yeah, she's much sexier and stuff like that, and that is true. But she's better overall though, because this is a very independent individual. She
that's right.
doesn't want to be tied down by this responsibility or that. She doesn't want to be told what to do by anybody, including Cal, right? And she's a much more independent thinker, whereas Supergirl, or Earth One, Kara, she's much more appeasing. She's much more wants to kind of get approval from Kal-El and stuff like that, right? It's very different. I think this is a much better character. But then again, the Earth One Kara has always been kind of portrayed as a young woman, very young, teenager even, whereas this is a woman, right? I've always preferred Power Girl, and it has nothing to do with her sexiness. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. She's just a better character, dude. She's just a better character.
She
Uh,
is.
how do you got the?
The sexiness is just
Thank you.
the cherry on top of a
Yeah,
much better, a much more confident, much more her own like you said, her own character.
yeah,
She's not a straight knockoff of Superman. She's not Superman in a skirt, basically,
right.
and that's one of the problems with Supergirl. Is they often write her as she's just basically Kale, right? She's a female version, obviously, but there's very few differences characteristically.
Yeah, very sweet. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
And that's one of the reasons why because when they brought her in, like I said, they bounce them back and forth. But when she came in Earth One situation and she stayed with the Kents, she because there's already a Kara, her alternate universe self, she took up the name Karen Starr. And
yes.
that's one of the differentiations. But don't be confused, because they're both Kara. They're the same character, just ages a little bit different, breast sizes certainly. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, very, very different. But I much prefer this Kara to the other one, to be honest with you. Now, it's kind of interesting to me because if I'm sure most of you guys have seen Smallville. It was a fun show. I mean, it's a TV show, so it has its hiccups. But I thought it was
Hmm.
fun overall, and it was interesting because they did bring Kara in later, but Supergirl type. But they also brought in a character that they made up called Raya, right? And
Yep.
Raya, the way she was interacting with Clark, because keep in mind he was still a young man in that series, where she's a woman. I would put money on the fact that that was supposed to be Power Girl, right? Because
Yeah.
outside of animated series, I don't know that I've ever seen Power Girl in a live action. You guys correct me if I'm
Um,
wrong, but
I don't think so. I
yeah,
think
I
you're
don't think
correct.
so.
And
But
one of the main reasons I think is because of the boobies. Let's be honest. They're
yeah, they don't like it. Yeah, they don't like it.
yeah. Well, one, it's hard to cast. If you're going to try and cast her as legitimately as possible to get, I mean, she is one of, if not the sexiest women in comic books. She just
Oh yeah,
is. Like
oh
there's that.
yeah,
That's hard to debate. So I think most fans would want the casting to be of a very attractive woman with the features,
yeah.
right? It's crucial, Chester. It's crucial if you're
It
going to do
is.
this character justice to have the
Well,
boobies.
they do exist. There are plenty of ladies like that.
Oh, I'm married to one who would look beautiful in this outfit. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, no, I understand the difficulty of it. But another thing we've talked about this before, how they really, really, really that this thing you guys explained to, I think Booster explained it to me. This thing called shipping, which is I'm
Yeah.
assuming meaning to make a relationship, shipping.
Yes.
But what would they really want to ship this Kara with the Supergirl Kara a lot, a lot.
Yes.
Now I keep my I don't really have kids in the house anymore, and my kids are adults now. I actually got my daughter in the house right now visiting. But I always made sure to keep my internet moderated pretty well because I didn't want any kind of pornography, anything to pop up with the kids in the house, right? I mean, you're a dad, you don't do that, and the
Sure.
internet is so such a prickly pear when it comes to that. So I always keep my moderation very high to keep that safe. But even with that moderation, my God, dude.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. It's a strange bit of incestuation going on. It's weird.
Yeah. I don't particularly.
It's
It's
weird. It's
yeah.
weird.
She
Very
she
weird.
she's best on her own. I think that's where she should stay for the most part.
Yeah.
Power Girl. I like her as her own deal.
Yeah.
Who obviously she can show up and help and things with the Justice League or whatever. That's fine, but I don't want her too intertwined with her interdimensional cousins.
Yeah. No.
Um,
Yeah.
it makes more sense for her to be her own deal, especially since she is from another world. And I've always really liked Power Girl. Especially every time she's ever done anything, which isn't very often, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Uh, she just she's a good character.
Yeah. She's
They've
cooler.
always done right by her, to
Yeah.
be honest.
She's much cooler, and I love her Centurion cape too. I've always loved
Yeah, I
that.
do.
That's a much
I
cooler
do.
way. And they did
It's
that with
even
Shazam too.
sexier. It's
It
just
is. Yeah.
damn,
It's just cooler. Yeah.
damn. They did everything right with her when
They
it comes to
did.
sex appeal.
They did. Yeah. And the thing is, I understand the argument, I guess. But what's wrong with sex appeal? Why is that a bad thing? I mean, humans
Something,
objectify
something,
everything. That's how we
something,
function.
something objectification bad. Something dehumanizes. I'm like, guys,
Okay.
she's not real. Not a real
Yeah.
person. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but
We're not
dude,
dehumanizing a fictional character. A fictional character isn't human.
if I worked in an office and I had one of the workers look like this, dress like this every day, she would be my best friend.
Chester, you would be in a lot of trouble, I
I know
think.
I would, dude. I would. I'd be in huge troubles. But nevertheless, let's move on from one of the best ones on this list. Let's be fair, Power
Yeah.
Girl. But honestly, the next one, you guys might be shocked, but I absolutely adore this character, Connell.
Now,
Now,
good old Superboy.
yeah, now, now,
One of them.
now well, the original Superboy was just Clark Kent, Kal-El. But
Yes.
of course, they'd grown him up, and they're not going to bring him back. And they had the odd idea, let's get Superboy back. It was very clever. I applaud the decision, right?
Yep.
But Kal-El here is a creation, a cloned version of Kal-El, created by, Lex Luthor. So he's a creation of science, intended to destroy Superman. Of course, it didn't go like that. And he's angsty, and Superman had. This is before we kind of had the kid in the mix, and Superman this was his son in a way, right? And
Uh,
Superman had to struggle with how do you interact with younger people and try to help them, and a lot of those good dynamics took place when Connor was on the screen, or in the comic book, excuse me. But he's also his power is a little bit different because he is a clone. They really kind of push the telekinetics more because let's be fair, Kryptonians are they're very telekinetic in their power. It's just internalized telekinetics, right? Is what it
mm.
really is. But they don't talk about that. With Connor, they do. Okay. But I love what they did with his character in the comic and in the animated series. I really, really like Superboy. I think it's a great addition to the Kryptonian list, even though technically, I guess he wouldn't be 100% Kryptonian. He certainly wasn't born there. But what do you guys think of Connell or Connor Kent?
The only real exposure to him I had in any long form was Young Justice, and he was okay there. He's not really for me, but I can see why people like him.
Sure.
He just, I don't know. Again, it's a dangerous. I think it's a dangerous path to tread when you start adding in Daddy Superman storyline
It's only a little
features.
bit though. It's not a lot because he is a
Yeah, I
grown
know they
man.
don't do it
So
much, but even still, it's just like I don't know. I don't like domesticated Superman. I don't like it one bit.
I get it.
I think he loses a lot of his purpose when just becomes a dad. Because now he's a dad. You see what I mean? Like he's supposed to be the man for the people, for everybody.
Yeah.
But well, he can't be because he's a dad.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. I just really love this character. I thought it was a really good way to bring Superboy back in. It was a twist.
It is
It's
a good way.
very
It is
different,
smart.
right? It
Yeah.
isn't someone's in a pod, going through space
Right.
and they got hit by an asteroid and they're 20 years off. I just it's different, and I always liked Connor. He's also a little bit more angsty, and he's not Superman.
Yes.
He's not. Even though he's a clone. I just thought it was cool. Once again, I know Con-El, if you change it to a C, I understand. I'm not in this run. Today's presentation, I'm not getting into Daxamites. Okay. I'm not doing it. Okay. So I'm
They're
kind of,
not Kryptonian anymore. They don't count.
yeah, that's true. But anyway, I just wanted to make that because I know there's another one. However, let's continue on here, but I do like Connor Kent. But of course, we can't have this conversation without the mainstream Earthworm version of Kara.
There she is.
Yeah. Now, I and it sounds like Thundera much prefer Power Girl, and like I said, it isn't just because it's a sexier version. It's simply a more fun character, right?
Yeah.
But Supergirl has her place, and she is her experiences are very different than Clark's, right? Now, the initial idea with her was when they first put her in the comic book was no different than Clark. She was simply sent to save her life by different members of the L family, right?
Yeah.
But they retconned that and changed it to she was actually sent to kind of raise Clark because he was a baby and she was a teenage girl, right? That was the idea. And there's some really good comics with Supergirl. She's in high school, and it's actually not a bad comics with stuff like that. However, of course, she got it got her pod got hit by a meteor and put her off course by like 20 years.
Yeah.
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 But anyway, I don't know why they keep coming back to that. But nevertheless, of course, she lands. She's a teenager. Clark is a full-on adult, and he takes care of her. So, haha, flip. However, Clark doesn't. I mean, and this is kind of an important point. I think we could take a second here to talk about. Clark is a Kryptonian, yeah, but is he? I mean, physiologically he is, but culturally, mentally, he's an Earthman.
Yes.
He's from Kansas,
That's right.
right?
He's an American.
He's an American. He's not Kryptonian at all. Now
He's a
later on,
Christian American, but we don't get into that,
well, no,
Chester.
he is, yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
later on, he, of course, with the we'll get into that as well. But with the Jor-El digitalized hologram, he does learn about his people and all that kind of stuff. Sure, but
Yes.
he is an American. She
That's
is an
right.
alien,
Right. She is
right?
very much an immigrant, right? And that's
Yeah,
insofar as she isn't raised here. She doesn't have American culture, Western culture. You know, one of the things that's very interesting about Clark is obviously he's not just physically impressive. His mental capacity is insane too,
sure,
and he knows Earth history like the back of his hand.
sure,
Like he's a master historian. So this is his world just as much as Krypton is. In fact, I would say it's even more so because this is the world he knows.
right.
And she isn't like that. She's a complete opposite of that in that regard because the world she knows is definitely Krypton.
Right. No, it's definitely true. And there's an interesting little problem. Once again, they kind of write themselves into corners, these comic book guys,
Yeah.
because she is so good-hearted and so sweet. Because she was raised that way by good people. The L family are good, and we've seen many times where they try to make Jor-El this
Villain.
corrupt, emotionless, deviant thing. They're always trying to mess with Jor-El, right?
Yes.
But clearly. wasn't made that way originally. The L family is not like that whatsoever, and Kara here is a perfect example of that, right?
Yes.
She's a great character. I do like her. I've never had any problem. To be fair, though, I much prefer her when she's in a comic book with Cal. When they're
Yeah.
doing something together than I do reading her comic separately. Because if I'm going to read a Supergirl comic book, I just read Power Girl,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
She has her place.
And typically get a better story if you read Power Girl, just overall.
Hmm.
But no, yeah, she has her place. I don't think anybody. I don't think anybody would advocate seriously for her to be taking out of canon or whatever, or killed off or whatever. I think she does have a place now. She's been around a very long time, and I don't. It's not that I dislike her. It's just the only time where she works, in my opinion, and makes sense is like you said when Kale's around.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she's just like. It's kind of like watching WNBA, right? It's like I have two versions here that are superior, that are very similar in Power Girl and obviously Superman. Why would I get invested in you?
Right.
What is it about you that I should put my investment in? And unfortunately, she just doesn't have an answer to that question for me personally.
Yeah. It is what it is, and even the costume she emulates the L family perfectly as Cal does. Where Power Girl's like, screw that, I'm doing my own damn thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is why she's a cooler character. But anyway, of course, Kara is very important, and she most certainly deserves to be here. And there is a movie about her with a very very pretty lady in it, and it's a horribly bad B movie, but go watch it anyway.
Sure.
Yeah, go
For
watch
the
it.
pretty lady, if nothing else.
Well, I mean, it has the right heart. Whereas the new Supergirl TV show is dumb.
Yeah.
I couldn't
And
even get
she's
through the
dumb.
first episode, dude. It's so
And
dumb,
she's
dude.
dumb.
Yeah.
You can tell a lot of these things are being written by people who either just aren't intelligent or are man children, right? Adult children, because they write these really dumb characters. They're just dumb.
They
Like
are.
there's no depth to them. They're very shallow in their interpretations and in their actions, and that show is replete with that.
Yeah.
Chester,
What a shame,
it's all over
though. Imagine if
it.
they had made a Power Girl show. Oh, that would have been freaking awesome, dude. An
I would have loved
actual
it.
Power Girl show. I would love that, dude. I would love
Yeah.
that.
And
Even
they
a
would have got
Supergirl.
everything they want. They would have got their girl power.
Oh yeah.
They could have pushed a little bit of feminism
In
and stuff. Because
spades.
sure, of course she's all about that stuff. She's about girl power. She's called Power Girl for crying out loud.
Sure.
Yeah, you could have done all. You could have had all of that, and it would have worked a lot better, I think. Especially if it was written by intelligent people. See, that's the key. It has to be written by intelligent people,
Yeah.
or otherwise it just comes off as dumb and condescending.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But anyway, let's move on here to next Kryptonian. And I know I'm going to get yelled at, but I'm right.
Well, yeah, you are. Technically, you are correct. He is a Kryptonian.
He is Kryptonian. And of course, the fact that in his creation, he was created by his father, by the way, which is creepy. But one of the reasons he is able to defeat Superman is because somehow his father figured out how to incorporate kryptonite into him. Right?
Yes.
It's part of his creation. Now, it's nowhere near as much as the other guy who has kryptonite heart. What's his name? That robot guy.
Metallo.
Metallo, yeah. Metallo. It's nowhere near as direct as that, but it is part of it. But this guy is literally a mindless murder machine.
Yeah.
That's all he
Perfect
is.
enemy for Superman's death and all that. That was, even though it was all kind of just, they kind of just threw that all together, that was the correct way to tell that story. Put the Superman, who is the the immovable force. He is constant as time itself against an unstoppable enemy, right?
Right.
The irresistible force. He's the immovable object. That's what Superman is.
Right.
And this
He
is the
said that
irresistible
many times,
force.
by the way. That's
Yeah,
actually
nothing
interesting.
could stop Doomsday. Nothing.
Yeah.
He ripped through the entire Justice League besides I think like the big three, which he eventually beat up Superman too. He just tore through, literally tore a path of destruction across the country, and Superman had to go all out literally to his own death, well, his death, quote unquote, to defeat him.
Yeah.
And I love that. It was
Oh,
the
it was great.
perfect way to tell that story. We didn't need Lex finally overcoming him, or we didn't need one of his known villains beating him. No. Just something that no one else can stop. He has to throw
Yeah.
everything behind the feet. I love that. It's
Yeah.
so smart.
Another Kryptonian. Yeah.
Yep.
And that was, I think it was great. It is clever, and I do like the character for what it is. However, can we talk about Germans again, if you guys don't mind?
Uh-oh. Here they
Grimlock,
come.
I'm going to talk
Here it
about
comes.
Germans again. I know you're half German. I do apologize.
Oh, he's half Sicilian.
I'm going with a German. I don't care. But anyway, in the Schneider thing, not only were they dumb enough to kill Zod, which first of all, Superman doesn't kill, so you screwed up already. Second of all, it's that guy, the actor, is awesome. Perfect, freaking awesome for Zod. And you're going to take away your opportunity to use that again. But they do that a lot, don't they? They have this cool, interesting idea and they kill it. It's like, no, have him be captured, defeated. Then you have something to use later on. My God, you could have built something cool out of that. Nope, you kill him. And then what do? You have the Facebook guy take his DNA and turn him into Doomsday. Dumbasses, dude. I mean,
Very dumb.
it's so stupid. You
Again, incompetence. Incompetence. Think about this for a second.
Utter.
The Death of Superman comic. everybody in Western culture that's over the age of 15 years old has either heard of it or knows of it, right? It is without question the most important comic book, I would say, in my opinion, ever written.
Yeah. I remember
It
the
was
day I bought it. I remember where I bought it. It was a sunny day.
easily $2 billion movie if done right. Easy.
Oh yeah.
Easy money. Just easy. Fadeaway jumper, open shot, right?
Yeah.
No question.
Like the 5th movie or something, right?
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
Easy money. And they threw it away at the end of a movie that didn't even, I don't even think it made $1 billion.
Right.
They threw it away at the end of a movie that was supposed to be about Batman versus Superman. Oh, and then Wonder Woman shows up.
That was dumb. They should have kept him completely out of that. I mean, they could have had him introduced there into himself, because one of the big complaints about the Man of Steel was how much of the city got destroyed, and I agree. However,
Yes.
you can say, okay, he's young. In the second movie, Zod's been captured. In the second movie, he catches a lot of flack for what he did, and he learns from it. Okay, great. Right? And you have
Right.
some other threat. Third movie, Zod escapes, comes back, right? Fourth movie, you're cleaning up from the disaster of Zod, right? Fifth movie, Doomsday arrives. Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Doomsday. And the whole time,
money.
and the whole time you keep teasing it. Just like they did in the comics. Doomsday is coming. Doomsday is coming. Nobody really knew what that meant. What is that? What's Doomsday is coming? But they did it for like 10 months, I think it was. They just kept teasing it. Doomsday is coming. And then Doomsday came, and it was real. Like, he was the end. If Superman did not stop him, nothing was going to stop him.
Right.
And that's, oh my God, it's just easy money. Incompetence. They just left that. Now they can't do that. I mean, they could, but it would be a lot less impactful, right? Just dumb.
Yeah,
it's so
wasteful.
stupid.
And to keep in mind, he walked right through Diana.
Yeah.
Like she was nothing, dude.
Nothing.
Because she's,
of course.
There's not. I mean, what you got Captain Marvel, Diana. There's not much on Earth. That's gonna, kind of even get closest to Kal-El. But nevertheless, wasted opportunities. I really don't understand why the Facebook guy made. I don't get it. I don't get it.
It was dumb. It was dumb.
Yeah. Whatever. Let's move on. And I'm going to stick with villains if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
We'll stick with villains here a little bit. And I'm going to bring up one you might be surprised, but I think it's a very important one.
Ursa. Ooh. Yeah. Ursa is important because she's sexy. I mean, because she's a good character.
Yeah. Now, this is, she's also known as Faora. In the Man of Steel movie, that's what they were referring to her as. Or maybe they were using both together. But either way, this artist here is actually kind of showing the two different depictions of her, one from Man of Steel, one from the Christopher Reeves Superman 2. However, this is Zod's woman. And of course, she's often seen side by side with Non, which I didn't put him in here, but he's represented in both movies as well. But it's a very interesting character. She's wicked powerful. She's wicked dangerous because this is evil. Zod isn't really evil per se. Zod is a general. He's a
Yeah,
military commander,
he's a megalomaniac.
and he's a tactical a guy.
Yeah,
She's just freaking psychotic evil, right?
yeah.
And I get why Zod likes her.
I mean, yeah,
She must be a Hellcat between the sheets, I'd say. But here's the thing.
Yep.
One of the biggest parts of Ursa, she hates men. She
hates him.
hates men.
Doesn't like him one bit.
She hates them, and I don't understand how they had her with men because she hates men. She wants them all dead. But I
Yeah,
guess for Ursa, General Zod is the only one she respects, I
that's right.
suppose. Which I guess in a way empowers General Zod. And we'll get to him in a minute, of course. Yeah, old Ursa. There's no way I could leave this Kryptonian out. She's a very cool character. She's horribly underused, is what she
Yes.
is. Because
Mhm.
she's a threat all on her own, dude. All on her own.
Yep.
And Man of Steel, I thought, represented that pretty well because she handled Clark, dude.
Yeah.
She handled him. And the only thing that saved him in that movie was his advantage, and then of course in the end, murder. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Just a little dose of murder, a little touch, little
so
drop.
so stupid. But anyway, Ursa, great Kryptonian, evil as shit. Don't get anywhere near her noodles.
Just don't do it.
You don't do
It's
it.
not worth
Not
it.
worth it. Not worth it. Now, the next one here in the list is a little bit of a controversy because of what all the weird stuff they've done with him. But you can't talk about Kryptonians and not talk about Jor-El.
God
Uh,
the Father. Yes.
yeah, and he's the dad. Now, I
Yeah.
understand that they've added a lot of grandpas and great grandpas, and of course, Lara, the mother. I didn't bother to put her in here. I just kind of, stuck with titular characters. But Jor-El, of course, is radically important. And although they've done all kind of weird stuff with it, I'm sticking with the original idea because I think it works best. He's a
Mm.
scientist, respected scientist on Krypton, tried to warn them, they didn't listen. He and the people around him who believed him and understood him all tried to save their kids and save themselves the best way they could. And he died on Krypton, right? He didn't escape, Michael Bendis. But he dead. But he put his consciousness, his downloaded his memory and himself into the computer crystals for the Fortress of Solitude, and therefore was able to educate his son beyond the grave. That's Jor-El, and it shouldn't be anything other. And Smallville made Jor-El a little bit more evil-ish. I don't know, evil is the word, but not a nice guy. But in the way they did it was juxtaposing to the teaching of Pa Kent and showing which is more valuable. So it kind of worked, you know what I mean, on Smallville, the way they worked Jor-El. But this is what Jor-El is. He shouldn't be back from life. He didn't miraculously survive. Screw you. Jor-El's dead. And he should be dead, and
Yeah.
he's this memory that Clark can access
Yes.
and learn from. That's what Jor-El should be. And
And I'm okay with that memory having some level of intelligence. Being
Sure,
some form of like a AI or a
sure,
virtual intelligence. I have no problem with that, but I do prefer him to be dead.
it's
I
better.
think that makes the most sense for Kale, right? Because it his father, his actual daddy, Papa Kent, is Papa Kent, right? That's his dad. Jor-El is obviously his biological father, and he learns many things from him. But the man he learns how to be a man from is Kent himself,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Is Jonathan
yeah,
Kent.
yeah,
And I think that's one of the reasons why I like the idea that Jor-El is not alive. He can learn many things from Jor-El. He can learn great history. He can learn moral lessons. He can learn all these things, right, from the shade of Jor-El. But he cannot learn how to live as a man.
right.
But he can learn that from Jonathan Kent. And that when you diminish the Kents beings, which they've done,
Many
unfortunately, in
times,
many
yes.
iterations, you diminish Superman because that family and their love for him is what makes him Superman. It's not Jor-El. It's not his heritage. It's not his blood. It's the way they raise him. He becomes Superman. He becomes a man of pure virtue and goodness because of them. Right? He could have easily went down a dark path with all of his power, but he doesn't, and it's because of them. Because he doesn't know about Jor-El until he's older. Right? That's not something he doesn't know that when he's a little boy. At least in most iterations, he doesn't learn about that until he's older.
No, definitely.
So it's the Kents that created Superman
And
because
it's
they
important.
made Clark such a good man, and it's very important because the purpose of Superman, especially now, what he's become, is he is the aspirational man. He is the Ubermensch. He is what we are supposed to want our future to be like
That's
as a
right.
person.
That's the idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why he is, out of any created character, the most iconic and important and
Yeah.
influential to culture. But anyway, I didn't put the Kents in here because they're not Kryptonians, but Ma and Pa Kent are absolutely essential to what Clark Kent
Yes.
is. That is very true. And once again, I don't know how many of you guys enjoyed Smallville. I thought it was pretty good overall.
Yeah.
I rather enjoyed it. It's far from perfect, but it's a TV show. They did what they could do. However, I'm okay with the way they handled Jor-El because he's very analytically minded, and he's thinking practically, and he's not bringing emotion into it because he can't. He's a program,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And
I
I
like
thought,
that too.
yeah, and I thought
I
they
think that's
handled
smart.
that well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, Jor-El obviously extremely important. And there are some. There was a TV show called Krypton, and there are comics that cover before the destruction of Krypton and stuff like that, where Jor-El is a featured character, and they're cool. Go read those. Go watch those. They're interesting. But anyway, let's move on here because we're about to get badass up in here because this dude is freaking badass, dude.
There he is. There he is. If there is a metal, like a heavy metal Kryptonian, it's this guy.
Oh,
He
yeah.
is imperious. He is a great villain because of his imperiousness. He's a megalomaniac, and
yeah.
I
He's
mean, you
wonderful.
gotta love him.
gotta
Kneel
love him.
before Zod.
Kneel before
Yeah, I
Zod.
probably would because otherwise he'll literally murder me. So,
But no, Zod. I mean, I know people like Lex Luthor, and I get it, and he's an interesting character because he's not really a bad guy per se. He's a racist, is what he is.
basically, yeah,
He's xenophobic. Of course, you got Parasite, you got Brainiac, but Brainiac is more of the zombie horde, really, isn't he?
right.
Et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not going to take anything away from those fun villains. They are fun, but the best Superman villain is freaking Zod, and he's underused, incredibly underused, dude.
See, I disagree. I say he's second best. I think Darkseid's his best, but he's right
Uh,
there, like they're neck and neck.
yeah,
They're
but
neck and neck.
I get your point, but Darkseid is literally the representation of evil.
Yes, correct.
And okay, Superman's fighting evil. I get it. I understand Darkseid and all, but Zod is far more dynamic and nuanced than Darkseid is, dude.
I agree. I would agree with that. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think Zod is much more of a character in that regard. He has more depth as a character on a personal level, especially for Kal-El. And is depending on which run it is, but typically he has a lineage back even to his dad,
Sure.
his real dad, Jor-El, which I think is cool. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Zod. I love Zod. I think Zod's awesome, and I do think I don't want him to be overused, but I think he's underutilized. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
I really like Zod. I like imperious villains. It's one of the reasons I like Darkseid. He's also very imperious.
Yeah.
I think that is a key component to a great arch enemy for a superhero, especially, and really just any hero, is they have to have a sense about them that other people would follow. Or they have to just be complete forces of devastation like Doomsday. I think those are the two best ways, especially for Superman, for his villains to be. Something about them has to be intriguing to the average person, and Zod's like that. People would follow Zod willingly
Oh, easily.
because he is just that guy. He's a
he's not.
charismatic, guy.
Well, he's not really wrong either. Not
Yeah,
from a certain point of view. This is a
right.
Sideshow collectible statue. You can go check it out online. There's many other poses and there's a whole bunch of stuff around this. It is really cool.
That is cool.
However, now I didn't put in here the Man of Steel version of Zod. I didn't because I was, I just wanted to stick with art. However, I did put this miniature in here, statuette. But that dude who played Zod in Man of Steel was freaking awesome.
He was. He did
I
a great job.
loved him. He did a great job. And how dumb of you, freaking Schneider. You should not have killed him. Not only for the reason Superman doesn't kill, but you just should have kept on to that dude because he
Yeah.
really ate up the freaking scenery, dude. He was
Well, not to
great.
mention, would a broken neck kill Zod? Like, I don't
Probably
think it would.
not. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
but
don't
but you
think it
know what
would.
I mean. They screwed it up. They screwed it up.
Yeah, yeah. He was
And
great. He
he
was
was awesome.
exactly what I said. He was
Oh,
imperious.
he was
He had an
perfect, dude.
imposing way about him,
Yeah.
and you could have okay, you do the first movie with Zod. I wouldn't have done that, but okay, you do that. Have Superman beat him, but just have him put him in the back in the zone or put him in the Phantom Zone.
Or
That way you can use him
some
later. You can
containment
use him
in the
again.
some
Yeah,
secret containment in the fortress
something
of
like
Solid or
that.
something. Yeah.
Yes,
Um.
because Zod is the type of guy who, when you need a big, big fuck off movie, he
Yeah.
can be that guy for
Oh
you
yeah,
because,
dude.
like I said,
It,
people will follow him. He's that kind of character,
well, yeah, but
and he's a great counterpoint to Superman because people follow Superman. Obviously, they love and respect him, but people also respect and fear Zod. And I just think you could do something really cool with that, right?
right,
Especially since those movies were trying to play with this idea of him being a deity, like, right, a modern day deity,
right,
and he had his people who hated him and people who loved him. Well, okay, you don't kill Zod off; he gets imprisoned, and you have people who think that it's wrong that Superman's imprisoning him, and he didn't
right.
get a trial, and he
Sure.
didn't. You could come up with all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And people who follow him, and Zod escapes, and now he has a whole legion of humans who are doing his bidding. Superman's not going to kill them. What's he going to do? Now that could be a cool story,
Right.
but we didn't get that because we had to snap his neck for some reason.
Well, it's yeah,
What?
and I mean, it's just imagine the second movie starts out where Superman is trying to mop up the remainder of Zod's forces, right? And
Yeah,
he starts running into this mechanized issue. He doesn't know what the hell's going on, and he goes into kind of a la Silence of the Lambs, having a conversation with Zod, and Zod has this wry
yes,
smile on his face about this the Brainiac virus, right? And
that
that
could be
and
sweet.
oh my god, dude, and that
Oh,
epicness, and then the third one, like I said, he gets out. Whatever, they could have done so much more with Zod, and especially that actor because he owned that. Another
he did.
guy who owned Zod was this dude.
Oh
Uh,
my god, just
Jesus
ridiculous. One of
Christ,
the best
dude.
performances in any comic book movie of all time,
Yes,
maybe the best. In all honesty,
yes,
he
yes,
just. Oh my god, I could have watched
yes.
10 movies with him as Zod. He was
Yeah.
so good,
He was
so good.
really, really good, and he doesn't have the
And
physicality that the Man of Steel actor did. However, you believe you do not mess with this guy, and of course, he didn't need to have that kind of physicality. He is, of course, Kryptonian. He also had non, go get it,
Yes,
right? I mean, it's pretty
yes,
simple. I actually like the representation of non in Man of Steel better than the Superman 2.
yeah,
But Zod, this guy is ridiculous. And once again, I liked Ursa too. But of course, you guys know the story of Zod. He was got himself in trouble because he overstepped his authority, and
that's right.
he got banished in the Phantom Zone, which saved them, right? Their lives because they were in the Phantom Zone. But they could have done so much more with playing off that first movie. And then what do? We go into Batman and Superman, which literally made most of my family fall asleep. It pissed my daughter off quite a
uh,
bit, by the way. You know, she was
Good.
not
That's
happy.
why. That's why I think I like your daughter. That's good. She's a smart girl.
Yeah,
That's
she
good.
did
Should
not care
should
for
piss
that.
everybody off. It was a terrible movie.
It was horrible. But it's a shame. I mean, we can't do nothing about it. It's done. But Zod, a great, great character, and in both of his iterations in the
Yes.
movies, and I would say his TV iterations and animated series iterations has been done really well, really, really well.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, Zod's one of the few characters that when they use him, they typically use him well.
mhm.
It's just I think he's underused is what I
Yes,
mean.
yes.
I don't want him to overuse him. I don't want them to hear that and be like, "Oh, put him in everything." No, no, calm down, chill out. But he could still be used a little bit more because there's a lot of really cool things you could do with him. You could have a cult of Zod. That
Oh
would be
yeah,
totally believable,
yeah.
absolutely believable. Uh, there's just so many cool things you could do with him, so many takes. Adrian in the chat asked a question. Said, "Am I correct in thinking that if Jor-El listened to Zod, then Krypton wouldn't have been destroyed? Or is that a story, but not the official story? He doesn't remember. He's not certain."
More
I
people would
think
have
they've played with
survived.
that. Yeah, they've played with that idea that Zod was correct at the beginning, and people didn't listen to him. Um, and that's one of the things that makes a great villain. Like Magneto is also a very imperious villain. He's not wrong. He's not
No,
totally
that's what I
wrong.
said. Zod's not wrong. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why Zod has endured as a
yeah.
villain for so long.
Oh, dude, I gotta go watch the movie now. Just looking at this art of the guy, because my God, he
Yeah,
freaking ate it up, dude. He ate it up.
he did.
If you have not seen Superman 2 with Christopher Reeves, what are you doing?
What are you
First of all,
actually
it's
doing?
it's Donner. I mean, what are you doing? But this guy is freaking epic, man. He is really, really good. And I don't want to take anything away from the Man of Steel actor. I don't know his name offhand. I don't know this guy's name offhand. But they both did a really good job, but in different ways. The Man of Steel guy brought a lot more physicality. This guy is just Caesar. I mean,
Yes,
plain and simple, right? But
yes, and I love
nevertheless,
that. I love that.
are you enjoying this presentation so far?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Because we're about to shift gears
Uh oh.
here,
I'm,
and
we're
I
about
know.
to, I'm about to not enjoy it. Is that what you're telling
No,
me?
no, no. I'm happy with it. I took time, as you can see, to put this together. But I knew it was going to take a long time, and it might well just be the show, and that's fine.
Yeah,
Because Superman deserves a damn show, right?
that's right.
But we're about to shift gears because we're getting into the man himself.
There he is. Look at him. That's a beautiful artwork. Oh my
Thank you.
god.
Yes,
Oh my actual god. That is
yes,
gorgeous.
it is gorgeous. I took quite a bit of time picking out these art pieces. Thank you.
Oh,
I'm trying to
Superman.
tell a story here best I can. But it was actually a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. And guys, everyone who's listening, and of course in the panel as well, doing these kind of things, putting together presentations for whatever you want to talk about, it actually is a lot of fun. It takes time, of course, but it's fun to do. And I would encourage you to do it and come on the show and share it. Well, I
Yeah,
will happily give you time to come up and show a presentation. Happy. Matter of fact, if you
absolutely.
download and send it to me, I can put it in a more complete full screen format. Seriously, seriously, if you guys want to talk about, I don't care what character, you put a presentation together, you want to come on and talk about it, please do that. This is a channel for us to have fun together. This is not a YouTube channel where we're trying to get 100,000. That's not what we're doing here. We're just having fun chatting amongst ourselves, right? So if you want to do a presentation, please do, man. And I would encourage you to go just try it, even if you've never done it. Just go try it because it's fun to do. It is a lot
Yeah,
of fun to sit and think about what should I do here or there. It's enjoyable. And if you don't have you don't have presentation stuff off of Microsoft, well, you can get WPS free, right? That's what I'm
yeah,
using. I'm not using
sure.
Microsoft stuff here. But seriously, keep that in mind, guys. I would love to have some of you come in and do some presentations. I think would be fun.
Does
Anyway,
anybody know? Is this your boy? Is this Ross? Who
no,
did this?
this is not Ross. This
This
is
is
someone else.
absolutely gorgeous.
It is
This is some of
gorgeous.
the best art I've ever seen for Superman.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Well, it could be Ross, I suppose.
That's why I asked because it looks a little like his style.
Yeah, but the art in the chest that's unfinished in shadow, that's not how Ross would do that, though.
That's
Because
true. That's
Ross is
true.
very photorealistic. I mean, the boots and the hand and the face are very photorealistic, but the rest isn't. So I don't know. But I do love Ross, and I have a lot of his art in here today, as you've seen. But I just thought this was stunning to start off the Superman conversation. Nevertheless, so in the Superman conversation, of course, we all know the story of it, but I'm going to use Superman different than the other Kryptonians to kind of explain what Kryptonians can do and what they
Quick,
are, right?
Eric,
Uh,
I believe, is saying that it was Terrence Stamp.
Terrence Stamp. All right, yeah, no, he would know that. Yeah, thank you. Like I said, I just thought it was stunningly gorgeous. I have a lot of good
It is.
Superman art in here we're about to look at, but I was trying to figure out which one do I put the title on, right?
Oh,
Uh,
well, now he says he thinks it is Ross, so he's got me confused.
Okay, well, he would know better than me anyway. Like I said, there's certain parts of it that seem Ross-like, but just Ross wouldn't handle that shadow that way, I think. But nevertheless, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I had a whole bunch of really great art to choose, and I was thinking about where am I going to put the title on, and I had to come with this one because it's just damn, dude, you've done pissed the man off. Someone's getting their ass kicked. It's just that's the reality of what's happening here. But nevertheless, Superman. Now, of course, we know his origin, as we've already mentioned several times. Put in the capsule, saved from the destruction of Krypton, traveled through space, landed on Earth in Kansas. A childless husband and wife, the Kents, of course, picked him up and decided to raise him illegally, keeping them aliens, secret is, we have walls for that. But what? I heard a voice.
It was my wife. She thinks the furnace might be busted. I told her I'd check it after, and she's basically just keeping herself from going to bed.
Oh, I see. I see. Well, yeah, no, you should check into that though, dude. Those things need to be maintained. That's for sure. But nevertheless, of course, we know the story of it. Of him and how he was raised by the Kents, and he was taught to be not only a good man, but a noble man.
That's right.
And this is what created Clark Kent. And there's always the argument, is it Kal-El or Clark Kent? Kal-El or Clark Kent? Well, of course, he is both. But
Right.
no matter how you cut it, I do prefer to say Kal-El. I think it's a really cool name. I love what those Siegel and Schuster did with the choosing of his name. It was cool.
Yep.
However, he's Clark Kent.
Yep.
That's who he is.
I would say the caricature Clark, that when he's in disguise, that's obviously just a caricature.
Sure.
But yes, I think in his heart, if he could choose, he would choose to be Clark if he
Sure.
was forced to.
That's what he is. That's who he is.
Yeah.
Right. But of course, like I said, we already know the whole story of what happened to Superman. Everyone knows it, and he grew up eventually working at the Daily Planet as a bespeckled Clark Kent, and always seeming to be this mousy, slightly incapable person, but yet
Yes.
capable enough to keep his job. And that's one of the reasons why I think, other than the amazing performances, particularly from Christopher Reeves in the original Superman movie, why that endures. I just watched it again recently, and I was like, it's just great, dude. Christopher Reeves is perfect as Spider-Man. Sorry, as Superman, and um, one of the things that makes him so endearing is the fact that he's so mousy, this clumsy, a little bit scared, but not a coward type of guy, right?
Right.
And Christopher Reeves just absolutely owned that aspect of it really, really well. And then of course he was also a really good Superman. If you haven't seen the first two movies, don't watch any of the other ones. Don't do it. Really, don't do it. But the first two are great. They should have been more tied together, but the executives got their damn noses involved and messed with Donner's work. So there are. It's imperfect, but they're really really great. But of course, that's Superman, right? Another great
Yeah.
piece of work here by Alex Ross. Just old classic Superman, right? But anyway, okay, so Superman, we get it, right? But now I want to get into what are the powers of the Kryptonians via
Mm.
Superman, okay? And I'm going to start out with probably the last one anyone would think about, but I think it's the most important. Going back to the whole science aspect I was talking about back in the beginning, with Krypton being made of kryptonite, and this constant seeping of radiation coming into the bodies of the population,
Yeah.
and it coming down to what exactly, why are they so powered? What is the deal with Kryptonians? And like I said, I think most people don't really take this into account, but Kryptonians really are energy sponges.
Yes.
That's really what they are. They absorb energy. And that's one of the reasons why kryptonite, no matter what its color, has such an effect on them, because they absorb energy all the time, right? This is a major aspect of their power that doesn't really get talked about very much. But it's incredibly important to what they are. And it also can inadvertently, Thundero, explain why Superman is always up and down with his power ranges over the
Yeah.
decades, right?
Yeah.
You can, kind of in your mind justify it, right? But
Sure.
this is really, really important. They absorb energy. That's what Kryptonians do, and that is very different than humans, right? And this is I put this first because it's the inception of all their power, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, if you understand that and you look at everything I've said already, and just to keep it simple, kryptonite itself is why they are super.
It mutated them.
It did. It did. And the fact that it's so destructive to them is because of the mutations it caused. So
Right.
kryptonite is not the bane of the Kryptonians. It is the birth of the Kryptonians. Now,
Yeah, I could buy that. I could
yeah,
buy that. Uh, I do think that this sometimes gets lost on a lot of people. That Superman's power is absorbed power. It's not necessarily in him innately, at least not all of it. It's very much because he has absorbed radiation from our sun
that's right.
that grants him his abilities. Um, Obviously, most comic book fans understand this. I think most even casual fans understand that as well. But there's a lot of stuff they don't do with that, or they have in the past, but they haven't in a long time, that they could do with it, because it's actually a very interesting ability.
Yeah,
And I think that one of the things that should do with it, or that they have done with it in the past, is they have kind of used it, like in All Star Superman, for example, where he got an extreme dose of solar radiation and it made him unstable and eventually
right,
killed him.
right.
Um, I think that's a cool concept. I
I
think
do
the
too.
balance, because what I think about Superman, I said this earlier, is he is vulgar levels of power. His power is basically limitless when you get down to it.
Sure.
But he is that way for a reason, and he's still himself for another reason. It's because he's a good man and he controls it.
Yeah,
It's his will. It's his indomitable will, indomitable spirit. That is really is really Superman. The rest of it is all just you know garnish, to be honest.
yeah,
Because we've seen times where he loses his powers for whatever reason, and he still puts himself in harm's way to protect people. At every opportunity, he doesn't back away from it.
it's his nature.
And
Yeah,
yeah, it's who he is. And I like that idea, right? And that's one of the things that makes him so unique. And with the kryptonite, they've had many different kinds of kryptonite over the years
hmm,
that do differing things. Some, even one that just outright kills him if he gets
sure,
too close to it. Um, I think that's a cool concept. And
sure.
it's, people misunderstand a lot, especially, non readers of him, think that he's invulnerable, he's invincible. It's we hear all the time he's hard to write for because he's invulnerable. Superman's not invulnerable at all, not even close. Actually, it's a trope to say he's invulnerable.
Right,
He's extremely durable. He's supremely durable, but he's not invulnerable.
right.
Um,
And besides, that has nothing to do with how you write Superman.
right,
Strip all the
correct.
power away, then write Superman. Then you'll
Yeah,
get it right.
and then add situations where the power shows up,
That's
where
right.
where you can
Yeah,
use the power.
Superman has nothing to do with the power. It's more about the man. But which is why it was so stupid that the idiots over at DC wanted to make he's no law. He's a resident of Earth. He's not an American. Tear up his license, and it's like, well, no, he's an American, and all humans on Earth are members of Earth. Are we not? Are we
Yeah.
not all Earthlings morons?
Well, yeah, it depends. Some people might be lizard men.
Especially that Joy Girl from Northman. God damn, she's an alien.
Yes.
Yeah, but anyway, but now going from the premise that they are energy sponges and all their powers come out of that, right? And
Yeah.
one of the reasons I like Connor Kent or Connell is because they play on that quite a bit. More where you mentioned they don't use that idea, that concept much. With Connor, they did, right?
Yeah.
As he developed, and I like that. But let's go through their list of things that all Kryptonians can do. This is not just what Superman can do; they all can do it. Okay, so here we go. Of course, we have the most iconic and famous of the heat vision,
Oh, yeah.
and
Good old heat vision.
the old heat vision. And depending on
Hard to take.
the presentation or the Kryptonian that's being played, they the amount of heat vision used varies, right?
Yeah.
Some of them use it constantly. Like Power Girl, she's constantly using her heat vision, right? It's part of her combat mode. Where Superman tends not to use it as much, doesn't he?
Right. He shies away from it.
He does because it's potentially deadly. And but it's just more he uses as intonation points in the story, right? Whereas
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas Power Girl, she just it's in her combat routine. It's just there, punches, kicks, flybys, heat vision, heat vision, heat vision, heat vision. Right. So it depends on which character, and how they're using it. And I like the fact that the writers understood that and employed that. I think it's cool.
Yeah, me
Right.
too.
Yeah.
Me
It's
too.
like John
And it's
Stewart.
also, again, what we were talking about, how there's. I moved away from my computer, so if I sound different, that's why. It's also what we were talking about, how she's different, right? She
She
has
is.
a different characteristics, and one of the things that makes her a better character. Um, but that is cool. It's a cool concept to have one. Because why wouldn't she? Why wouldn't the only reason he doesn't is because he's afraid of killing somebody,
Yeah.
basically.
That's mainly it. Yeah.
She's less concerned with that. Obviously, she still doesn't do it, but you know, she's not as prim and proper in that regard
No,
as
she's
Clark
much
is.
rougher. Yeah, she is
Yeah,
rougher than Kal-El for sure. But anyway, heat vision, of course, iconic, something that all Kryptonians can do, right? Another
right.
thing all Kryptonians could do, other than the little things, I'm not going to sit here and talk about their hearing is enhanced and their vision is enhanced. Of course, they're supermen. Everything about them is more than human. Sure, I'm talking about the powers and specifically. Another one, of course, that it gets it. Sometimes you see get utilized, and then you don't see it forever. This one, the super breath or ice breath or freezing breath, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's powerful, right?
Oh yeah, it's extremely powerful, and it's one of the coolest powers. I think I've
It is
always
cool.
thought it was a really cool power. It doesn't get as much use, but again, I think a lot of the reason it doesn't get as much use is because it's so powerful. Like,
Sure.
why doesn't he just freeze breath pretty much everything? Because he could
Right.
do it. He can flash
Good.
freeze a person.
Yeah. And going back to Smallville, there was a really great scene there where he uses his. I think he was learning it, but he uses his freeze breath in that an episode of that. Yeah, I keep going back to Smallville. I didn't realize I liked the show as much as I did, but I think it's a pretty good representation of Superman, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ice breath, of course, is another thing that all Kryptonians can do. Another thing that Kryptonians could do, which is interesting, is this one. They don't talk about that so much. Back in the day when I was a kid, like Super Friends and things like that, you'd always Superman was always employing his X-ray vision, right? You
Yeah.
don't see it as much these days. It's less used as it used to be. I don't know why, right? But I thought this was just funny. Uh, you know, Superman is being X-ray vision by another Kryptonian, I guess. But but it is useful, right? Of course, his limitation is lead, right?
Yes. Which makes sense,
Yeah. Well,
scientifically.
you know what? I guess it does. But you know what doesn't make sense? I said I wasn't going to talk about the Daxamites. I'm going to talk about the Daxamites.
Uh,
Why are they? They're not affected by kryptonite, which makes sense. They're not Kryptonians. They're Daxamites. But why are they affected by lead? One of the most common elements you're going to find anywhere in the universe. It's like
um,
it's like a Shyamalan movie where aliens come down and their water hurts them.
I think you're answering your own question,
Yeah,
Chester.
thank you.
It's probably just bad writing.
It's just bad. Yeah. So once again, not talking about the Dexamites. But X-ray vision, very useful tool. Very useful. And of course, another thing which kind of comes into the idea of super hearing, super sight, and all that kind of stuff, but it needs to be mentioned because it specifically is potent when it comes to Superman, is the speed.
Oh
Now,
yeah,
the eternal battle, who would win the race? Well, of course, Flash is going to win the race. I mean,
yeah,
ultimately, but it's going to be close. And they played with that pretty well in movies and stuff, I think, over time. But one of the things that you rarely see put into the comic or put into animations and stuff is that you see Superman just kind of coming up and normal speed boxing people, right? Which I get it.
yeah.
You're making an entertainment movie, but in reality, the dude would be a blur. You wouldn't even see him, and you'd be hit 1,000 times before you even knew he was there. That's the
Right.
reality of it. But I understand why they don't do that. Now, once again, going back to Smallville, he started out as the blur, right? So they
Yeah.
understood that and they applied it. Well, I really guess I like Smallville, huh? Huh.
Apparently,
Apparently.
apparently a big fan.
Well, they just did it well, dude. They did a good job
Yeah.
with it. I
No, they did.
guess. Yeah. But this eternal question, and there is no question. Of course, Flash is going to be able to go faster because ultimately, Flash is so fast that he goes beyond the limit, the physics limit of speed, and into what they call the Speed Force, right? So he is
Right.
faster than speed itself. Superman can't do that, right?
No.
So yeah, Flash is faster. And who's going to win in a fight? Superman's going to lay waste to him. I don't even understand why that's. Do you
Yeah.
understand that argument?
I think here this is one of the reasons why I don't like Wally West, because a lot of that came up during his run. Um, no, I don't. I think it's ridiculous. The
Yeah.
idea, of course, the idea they come up with is because he's so fast, he can go so fast that if he hits Superman, he would destroy him.
Yeah. No. No.
If he hits Superman,
Yeah, but
it's a big.
um, uh,
There's a
can,
big if there,
yeah, but
guys.
can I bring science into it for half a second, if
Yeah,
you don't mind? Speed in this pack, and in this case, in the effect of impact, only applies to the differentiation between the speed. And
that's
if
right.
Flash is going just like a few mile an hour faster than Superman is, because you can't fight Superman if he goes so fast he goes in the Speed Force. He can't do it because they're no longer in reality with each other. So he
That's
can't
right.
be that much faster than him anyway. Therefore, his impact, his punch, is not going to have any more power to it than a normal man because he is a normal man. So it
Correct.
doesn't apply like that because Superman is also moving at speed.
He would have to be going at an incredible speed that Clark either cannot match or is not matching and
Right,
catch him completely off guard,
right.
which is impossible
Which is
because he's
impossible. And
Superman.
we know that it
He'll
isn't
know you're
true.
coming.
Because
Yeah,
aside from going beyond the speed of speed, the velocity of speed, Superman is right there with him. He's just got that
yeah.
extra little bit to go into the Speed Force. And if you like Flash, you'll understand why that is. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Flash. It's a great, cool character. He really is. But I understand the argument. Yeah, he's going to win in the race ultimately, but he ain't. Kal-El would tear the hell out of him, dude.
Yeah.
I
With
mean, in
one hand,
reality, yeah,
literally just boom.
it's just not even. And the movies understand that, and they represent it that way. Nevertheless,
Yeah.
okay. So, his super speed is important. Therefore, I put it up here, and all the Kryptonians have it, right? Another important aspect is his invulnerability. I thought this was an interesting way to display that.
Yep. Yep. His quote invulnerability.
Yeah,
Um, the reality is it's not actual invulnerability because he
not
does
true.
have
He
vulnerabilities,
does. Yeah.
but it is basically anti-impact, right? He can absorb and deflect and
Mhm.
take very little to no damage to most forces
Sure.
of physical forces.
Yeah.
But
Well,
energy and obviously magic are different.
yeah, we're gonna get
Um,
into that. Yeah, but then again, it
yeah,
comes into also how much energy has he absorbed, because that can play
right.
especially high end, that plays a part. But
Sure.
this is one of those crossovers they did, and it's just awesome. It's like the Hulk is like, "Who are you? Go away, insect." I thought it was awesome. But anyway, the invulnerability or the high level of protection is of course a big part of being a Kryptonian. Right, it's a big part.
Yes.
But let's move into since we're talking about invulnerability and the fact that it's not really invulnerability, let's talk about the weaknesses, which we already did a little bit. Of course, kryptonite. Now,
There it is.
kryptonite has many colors, and they've done really quirky, weird things for storytelling purposes, which is great. I have no problem with that whatsoever. It's interesting when because one of the a kind of a cheap way to tell a Superman story is to put him in some unstable mental state, right?
Right.
Where he's not himself and he's not the iconic Superman. That's an easy way to tell a story, and why not? Why not? It's not hurting anything.
Right.
But Kryptonite, of course, is a very big part of the weakness of Superman. It's never actually been his downfall per se, although, like I mentioned with Doomsday, but they can fight against it. But once again, keep in mind because they're energy sponges, this is why kryptonite affects them so much quicker than it does a normal human. Because once again, kryptonite will kill a normal human too. And I don't know if a lot of people understand that. Because I think movies and stuff don't represent kryptonite correctly. Because they all often show it as these people holding their hand and putting Superman on his knees. Dude, that would kill them over with long exposure.
Right.
Kryptonite is radioactive, right?
Yes.
It's the
Poisonous.
it is poison. It's the sponging effect, the energy sponging effect of Kryptonians that makes it hit them so quickly. That's the problem, right?
Right.
But anyway, they've done some really cool stuff with Kryptonite. It's an interesting character to depower him for a moment to try to add some, emotion to the scene, right? But Kryptonite, a big part of Superman. Another thing, which I know a lot of people know, but probably your average viewer doesn't know, of course, magic. And
Oh yeah.
and why? Why would you think that magic has an effect on Kryptonians?
I don't know. Is there? Do they have a canon reason for why he's vulnerable to it? Is it
Sure.
just because? Is it just because magic? Right? Just because it
Well,
is
yeah,
magic,
that's
or
exactly it.
yeah,
Because it's
yeah,
magic. Right?
yeah.
I
That
mean,
that
there
makes perfect
that's
sense.
it.
Yeah.
Because these guys have resistances against all kind of stuff, but it's all comes from their energy sponge ability, right?
Right.
Magic is a separate, completely separate thing. So why wouldn't the Kryptonians be affected by it? Why wouldn't they be?
Yeah. Makes
And
perfect sense.
and of course it adds another layer of invulnerability where you can bring in like Captain Marvel or of course Wonder Woman as well and
Right.
so that's it's a nice little addition, but it really comes under the category as why wouldn't it? There's no reason it would, right? There's no reason they would be resistant to it. There's no reason, right? Because even though today I have been trying to explain the science of Superman, which is impossible because, like I said from the beginning, if there was an actual person, a Kryptonian, they would be a walking black hole and they would literally devour everything around them just by walking. That's the
Yep.
level of intensity of their density, right? That was a rhyming joke. I didn't even intend it.
Intensity of their density. Oh
Yeah,
boy.
but
Oh
it's true.
boy.
Thank you. I'll be here all week. But
Devilish Boredom says magic supersedes biology and the
Yep,
laws of reality.
that's right.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes
Bec-
perfect sense.
that's right. Because Kryptonians are science based. They really are. There's
That's
no supernatural aspect to Kryptonians. They're science based, right? And
that's
and
right.
of course, magic is beyond that, right?
I've said for years that they need to put Superman in the magical part of DC for a while and let him fight some magical enemies
Yeah, it'd be
for a
fun.
while. Like make that his shtick for a bit, because then you can get away from the ridiculous excuse of he's too powerful. We can't write for him. Okay, well put him
Yeah,
where he's not.
they're just not capable writers. Because, like I said, just
Yes,
take Clark, tear away all the powers, write a story, and then
right.
pepper in the powers here or there to add some color. That's how you write Superman. It's not hard,
Yep.
right? And of course, that brings me into the ultimate power of Superman. You've and I have mentioned along the way here of kind of the important ideas that he's a man of integrity. But the real superpower of Superman is control.
That's right.
He is constantly in control. And this is something that is very rarely mentioned appropriately because
I agree.
his ability to control that level of power is the most mind-boggling thing about Kal-El. How does he even do that? How does he sit down, hold a knife and fork in his hand and eat a steak? How?
Yeah.
Right?
How does he, when he steps, does he not create craters?
That's right. That's right.
Like,
So
just everything about him is constantly he's under control because his power is so extreme. He could literally level cities with no effort at all.
that's
Just a
right.
wave of his arm. He could wave his arm with such force that it creates a blast wave that could just take out city blocks
That's
with
right.
ease. He's that strong.
And all
And
Kryptonians can do that.
yes, and his control is what makes him such an important character. His ability to contain himself is what makes him truly a virtuous man, a truly good
Yeah.
man. Because he has within himself the power to be anything he wants, and very few people can stop him on the planet. And or even put up a fight. And I would say pretty much nobody could if he really went all out. So what does that mean? That means he is by far the best person in the world
Oh,
because
he's
he
a
has
Zen
the power to
master.
be the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has absolutely the power to be the absolute worst,
Right.
and he chooses not to be.
And there are examples to back up that statement. By the way, have you
Yeah,
ever seen a more serene Batman, Superman, dude? I mean, my
I know
God,
it's
dude,
beautiful,
look at it. It is
just
gorgeous.
beautiful.
But because several of the other Kryptonians, they lose control from time to time. I think Connor Kent was the best, character study into that, of how to gain
Yeah,
control. But Cal doesn't unless something is affecting him, and even then he is in control.
that's right.
So it is his greatest power, I personally think. But these are the abilities of Kryptonians, and therefore it doesn't matter which Kryptonian you're talking about, including the however many tens of thousands to million of Candorians in that damn bottle. This and it's an interesting little juxtaposition because one of the things you'll find online right now that's quite common is the comparisons of Kryptonians to Vexamites, what do they call uh,
Oh, the ones from Invincible you're talking
yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah.
Um, oh, come on. Now you see what you did? You see what you did?
Sorry. Vestamites, Velostamites, something. Anyway, that I think the juxtaposition of it that shows you the control of the Kryptonians, because that is a 100% copy of the Kryptonians. That's what they are. They're exactly
Viltrumite.
Viltrumites. Yeah,
Viltrumite.
Viltrumites. Okay, they're exact copy of Kryptonians. The only difference is Krypton is not gone. They're basically what they do is they send a single member of their population to a planet to take it over. One.
Right.
And it
Yes.
really demonstrates what a Kryptonian could be. So
Right.
all these Kryptonians do have a manner of control. And if you go back to the Man of Steel movie again, with that great actor who played Zod, even as he's learning to use the powers very quickly because he's a highly trained man, which Clark Kent isn't, right?
Right.
And they displayed that very well. You see him struggling with the control of it, even there, understanding you have to keep control of this because you have to
Yes.
focus your attempt, your energy, right? But the Vitramites is a good example of what the Kryptonians could be, right? And that was the
Yeah.
reason they created
And
them.
they're not even anywhere near as powerful as Superman. Like people make that comparison, but in reality, Superman, the Kryptonians are still far more powerful. Um, but they're a very good just juxtaposition of them, right? They're a very good
I think
facsimile
so.
of them.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. But anyway, so this is what the Kryptonians are. And they're it's an interesting creation. I don't know why people had trouble writing for them because, as you see, there's so many different types of characters, Kryptonians you could play with. They could even do more if they wanted to. But
Yeah.
these people today are just talentless hacks when it comes right down to it. And
Well, it's one of the reasons why I've advocated, as much as I love Superman, for them to do less Superman,
yeah, I get it.
to
Yeah,
just let him chill out a little bit, let him just kind of be like Doctor Strange for a little while, where he shows up in other people's stuff and helps them solve problems, um, stuff like that.
right.
Mainly just because I would rather they not write Superman than write bad Superman. I
Yeah,
would
no,
rather
I
they
get you.
not have to do things like domesticate him because they're just out of ideas. Like,
Right.
let's be honest, that's
No, I
one of the
get you.
reasons that
I
happens.
get you. And that's true. And of course, another problem you have is for some reason with this woke culture or these progressives, they can't understand the idea of a man, and I don't mean mankind, I mean a male, right? Being a symbol of truth and justice and goodness,
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
They can't understand that. It comes down to the idea that if you're a dude walking around or talking to a kid, they're automatically vilified, and it's ridiculously stupid. The amount of actual males that hurt children is minuscule. Men are protectors. He's a protector, and they can't write for that
Yes.
because men are villainous in their very nature as far as they're concerned. And this is one of the reasons why they're having a hard time doing anything cool with Superman, and the reason why they have to tear him down just like so many other characters, because he's beyond that. This is a man that would not hurt a fly, oddly enough.
Unless he absolutely has to.
That's right. That's an important distinction, don't you think?
Yes.
Right? Because
He
Batman would
is
kill a fly in a heartbeat, dude.
exactly.
Yeah.
Superman at his heart is a man of peace.
Yeah.
But he understands that, the old saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. He
Oh yeah.
understands that in order to have peace, sometimes you must be all the time you must be strong. And that is why he goes out and uses force when necessary, and very small amounts typically, because if he uses anything more, he would destroy whatever he's targeting, to handle those who have chosen to not be peaceful.
Yeah.
I think that's a nuance I think that's lost a lot, and I think the best Superman stories remember that Superman is holding back always,
Always.
at all times.
Yeah.
There are very few villains that he's ever fought where that isn't the case. And it's only when he realizes that he can actually punch this son of a bitch that he will.
Yeah.
Like a Darkseid or a Zod
Or
or
Doomsday,
characters like
that.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Doomsday.
Yeah.
But even Doomsday, he didn't go all out at first, right? He was testing his limits, trying to do this with as little damage as possible, just trying to stop him.
That's true.
And eventually he realized I have to put everything into this. There's no other way for me to stop this guy.
Yeah.
And that is who he is. He is restraint. He is a restraint, the power of a god restrained in the morality of a human man.
Yeah.
The
No, that's
morality
true.
taught to him by a father.
He's the perfect concept of the Olympian, even though none of
Yes,
the Olympians were perfect. But
that's right.
that's true. Now, of course, like I said, this is, I think, his greatest power is control. Another really good benefit that Superman himself has that all the Kryptonians don't have access to, of course, is the fortress. And the Fortress of Solitude, it was a great little idea they threw in there. I don't know when. I suppose I should have researched that. I don't know when they threw the fortress in, but what a great addition. And what a great
Yes,
name, the Fortress of Solitude. Because it
yes.
must suck sometimes to be Superman, dude.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's still immortal, right? Even though he's mostly immortal, but technically he's still immortal. Uh, so he still has all of the same, wants and desires and feelings and things of a person.
Yeah.
And because he is a person. So, yeah, there has to be days, and I think some of the comics have addressed this done very
Sure.
well,
They have.
where it just sucks to be him. It's just there's no win condition. This is not a day where Superman gets to be happy because for whatever reason, it's just a bad day. Pick a reason. Pick a villain did something, or a bunch of things happened that he couldn't stop, or he's not perfect. As much as he's elevated as the ideal, he's still not perfect. He still makes mistakes. He still sometimes isn't fast enough, or sometimes makes the wrong decision. And there's no one who can really castigate him but him.
Yeah.
That is heavy is the head who wears the crown. Superman wears the crown. He is the king of superheroes. He is the guy, right? He is the king of kings in this genre, in this world. So no one really has the right or has the authority to talk down to him, to be honest, except him. And the best part about him is he does.
Yeah,
He
but he
keeps
also
himself in
doesn't
check.
think that way, though.
Well, I know,
At the
but what
same
I'm
time,
saying is
yeah.
he keeps himself. He forces himself to keep himself in line. He
Yeah.
always is reminding himself of who he is and of the stakes of what he does. And I think that's important, and it's a thing that's also often lost in the fact that people say he's perfect, he doesn't have any flaws. That's just not true. That's completely untrue.
Yeah, no. And like I said, I really love the addition of Fortress of Solitude. What a great naming, a great creation. The idea with the crystals and stuff is really a great little addition. And I think it's an important aspect of Clark, or Cal, I guess would be better in this term. But yeah, no. And the fact of Solitude, simply with the idea that the dude can hear everything all the damn time, right?
Yeah.
Going to a place that can block that out, that he can actually just be at peace for a little bit, it's a rather important addition, I think. And it brings me back to thinking once again. I've mentioned this before, but it's a perfect example today. The Astro City, which is a great little creation. Alex Ross, of course, is involved in that with the covers in that production as well. We talked about before, the new Astro City comics are coming. Awesome. But in their Superman in Astro City is called the Samaritan, and the Samaritan, he's Superman. It's basically the same story. And he there's a great issue where it starts out with him flying, but it's a dream, right? Because when he
Yeah.
wakes up, every second of his day that he's awake is running around the world saving people. He never gets to
Right.
enjoy just flight. And that's what he dreams about, his desire. And even if you don't go read any of the other Astro City stuff, which is very Silver Age, it's a lot of fun. But even if you don't read that, go read that one Samaritan issue because it's sublime, I think. And
Yeah.
it's really well done in that issue. And I really think it gives a window into what Superman must feel, right? But anyway, that's my
It
presentation of
is.
Kryptonians.
It would be that some people like to fantasize about being Superman. That's obviously something we've probably all done at some point,
Oh, sure.
or at least having
Especially
his
the little
power.
kids, right?
But it would be hell, to be honest. You would have to be him. You would have to be a man of irrefutable character to be him, because the constant pressure would be constant. It would never end. It would be ceaseless. Because he can, like you said, he can hear everything at all times. There's even, depending on when they've written him and things, he also has some psionic abilities. So he might even be able to literally hear some people's thoughts. There's no shutting it off for him. He doesn't get to shut it off. I mean, he can go to the fortress and block it out, but even then, the guilt will get to him if he did that for too long. Right? He'll feel like he's
Sure.
not doing
That's
his
true.
job, basically.
That is true. Yeah.
So it's he doesn't get to rest, and I think one of the things that I think of some of the good writers who've handled Superman stories, especially like one-off series, one of the things they play with is what you were just talking about, his moments of peace and joy. And one of them is often just flying around, just the freedom of it, just being
Sure.
able to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. I think there's something about that that's almost unique to him. I mean, other superheroes have similar moments, but it's just something about him in the character and what he means to the culture.
Yeah,
I mean, when Superman died, that was a culture shock to the whole world.
it was.
Everybody in the civilized world had an experience with it, whether they cared or didn't care. They knew about it. It was on. It was literally on the local news here. They talked
Yeah,
about it. A whole segment
that's true.
about the death of Superman. They showed the cover for Funeral for a Friend and how it had Marvel superheroes coming walking by his casket and things like. That was the most important comic book of all time, in my opinion. I genuinely believe that.
Hmm.
That is because he is the most important character America has ever produced, and one of the most the world has ever
I
produced.
think so.
That is how important
Yeah,
Superman is.
it is a good character. That is true. And he's gone beyond that, and what he represents is true. Particularly with
Yes,
America, because America, even though we're not this, and our government is certainly not this, America wants to be the white hat. That's what
that's right.
we, the population, want to be. We want to be Superman. We want to be the good guy. And over time, even though that wasn't Siegel and Schuster's intention, obviously they were just trying to make money off a character. But he became something that was stitched into the American psyche, right?
Yeah,
And he became something very special. I mean, shoot, man, Superman has actually gone and shook hands with a president, right?
right.
He's been there, and he's a symbol to us more than anywhere else in the world. Superman, of course, is iconic, and I get that, but for an American, it means more. And when you have morons over at DC Comics that are going to make him not American anymore because America was never great. They
Yeah,
really need a
yeah,
square kick in the balls. They really do
yeah.
because they don't understand the character. And now, Roger, I thought about putting Bizarro in here. I did, but he's not a true Kryptonian per se. He is.
Yeah.
He's come out of Cal. Keep that in mind. But I just decided not to. I could have, but I mean, I think I timed the presentation pretty well. I mean, we're on time right now. And of course, I didn't put Lois Lane in here because she's stupid, Dave. He should be with Diana. But then again, I understand why they put Lois in there. It's to humanize him and bring him down to earth, right? I get it.
Which is what I dislike. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been, I keep saying it. I don't like that. I think
Well,
Superman, as if you're going to do that, you need to depower him because, for one, like we were just talking about, that would be hell for him.
there's no way
That would
he could
be
handle
there
it.
would
Yeah,
be
that's true.
Yeah. There's nobody could handle it. Nobody could handle the response. Not even Superman could handle being Superman and being a husband and father.
Yeah,
It's
he's
just
too
it's an
busy.
impossible situation for him
He's
to
too
deal with.
busy. That's true.
It's an unfair situation for him to put anybody else in too, which is why I
That's
don't
right.
think he'd ever do it.
That's right. And besides, Lana was much more bangable.
Yes. Plus,
Um,
I mean, a human he would literally destroy
he would.
in
He
sexual
would.
relations.
And they even dealt
It'd
with
be
that
murder.
in Superman 2. They even
Yep.
dealt with that. He depowered himself so he could be with her. So yeah, the
Yep.
Lois Lane thing, I get why. I understand why some people like it. I've never cared for it. I don't need Lois Lane. If he's going to have his male urges, and go deal with it with Diana because she has urges too, right? So
Yep.
let them hook up from time to time, and that's good enough, right? I think they should have done that from way back when Wonder Woman was brought in. They should have saw that and like, oh yeah, well let's do this. But by that time, I think they'd already canonized Lois Lane, so that's probably why it never
Yeah.
happened. But nevertheless, guys, I did have some news stories up, but screw that. I'm leaving it right here, man. Because
Those can be mentioned at a different time because Superman is that awesome.
he is, and I'm very happy with the timing here. That was pretty much on 2 hours as I had planned it. So rock on, dude. But
I love
yeah, Kryptonians, very interesting creations, lots of different characters with very different things to do, and I do appreciate that because it is something that, like Green Lanterns, for instance, the Green Lantern Corps is ultimately just like a Kryptonian. They all have the same abilities per se, right?
Right.
They might apply them differently. But the Green Lantern Corps, what makes it interesting? Why can you read a Green Lantern comic book? Well, it's because their characters are different, right? I mean, Hal
Right.
Jordan is nothing like John Stewart, right? Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah, it is John Stewart. And therefore from Kyle Rayner or Kilowog. They're all very different in how they apply themselves.
You
And
noticed he
Kryptonian,
didn't mention one.
what,
Putting it out.
Sinestro?
Listen to him. He knows who I'm talking about.
Sometimes redhead genocide is important. Okay? It just is. But anyway, but you know what I'm saying. I'm making the example here because the Guardians, of course, or the Green Lantern Corps, they are very powerful. They are very powerful. But
Yes.
but their powers are very similar. They differentiate through their characters. Connor Kent is very different than Clark Kent, than from Karen Starr, than from Kara, et cetera, et cetera. They're all very, very different, and that's why they've endured. To be honest with you, I don't know why we don't have more Kryptonians by this time. Really, because I did
Yeah.
leave a few out, but not a lot, dude. I left out Siri L, who is this weird, schizophrenic daughter of Clark and Lois from the future. I left off the Daxamite because fuck that, et cetera, et cetera. But in
Yep.
general, there's not a lot. They could do more with the Kryptonians, I think, especially because you've
Sure.
got Candor right there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it as long as the story makes sense.
Right.
Um, I think I think again the big thing for Superman in general, because let's be honest, they're going to do Kryptonian stuff. He's going to be involved most likely.
Hmm.
Um, is to make sure it makes sense. Make sure it's a good story. If Superman's not going to be directly involved very much, make sure there's a reason for that. If he is, then make him have a purpose.
Sure.
A lot of times they write him just to write him. It's very obvious,
Clearly.
or
Yeah.
they write him off in weird ways that don't really make sense or aren't explained very well. Um, and I think that does a disservice. I think Superman is one of these characters. He may be the only one, in fact, besides like a Doctor Strange, I guess, who doesn't need to always be there to always have a presence.
That's right.
He is
Yeah.
Superman. He
Yeah.
doesn't. It doesn't matter if we don't see him for a year or two in the books
That's right.
because we all know we're going to see him again. He's
Yeah.
Superman. He's
Yeah.
not. He's not
And,
going anywhere.
and this is one of the big errors of the MCU. They handled Doctor
Yep,
Strange completely wrong. He
I
should
agree.
be an influence from the background, not this guy who makes stupid mistakes because they've made him small and he's
Yeah,
not. So they've screwed up
correct.
Doctor Strange completely, 100%. And the MCU is are idiots. They don't know what they're doing in that regard. Nevertheless, I am going to call it here. Awesome. Superman, of course, but the Kryptonians as well. And well, just to kind of answer what you said, though, but we were talking about Power Girl and how she's much better read than Supergirl. There are, of course, some of the early stuff with Power Girl where she's involved with Clark, but you can go 50 issues with Power Girl and never see Superman.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
she is a standalone
absolutely.
thing, yeah. Aside
Yeah.
from her origin story, but nevertheless, Grimlock, would you like to add anything to that endurance run we just did? I
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've never been a big Superman fan. Not particularly knowledgeable about it. This is actually pretty cool to see. And because I was one of those kids who, back in the day, called him the Big Blue Boy Scout, but I was never, but I didn't want him to change.
Yeah,
I'm not one of those
Yeah.
people who wanted him to be more edgy because it's like I don't need to read Superman. There's Lobo. Um,
sure,
Right.
that's fair. Yeah,
it's um, I think as there's two, and it's kind of funny because I'm not a big fan of either one in particular, but just watching the last 10 plus years of what they have done to diminish and at times just flat out destroy Superman and Captain America is just kind of like
yeah,
sad to watch because
Yeah.
it's this. I don't know if it's just lack of talent or vindictiveness, and virtue signaling, where this idea, well, there was never like going back to what you said about how they've made the Kents, how they've tried to destroy the Kents
Yeah.
and the Wayne family. Oh, they wasn't really that good all along. So
Right.
this idea, I guess, this idea that you can't come from a family that taught you the right way to do things, or either that doesn't exist in their world, or unresolved parent issues, which is most likely the case. Um, Also not understanding special. Like Superman and Captain America are supposed to be special in what they represent
Sure.
to their collective universes. Like Captain America isn't as powerful as Superman, but I look at those two as they were supposed to represent hope. Like
Yeah. No, they're very similar in
when
their projection. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and that they lead by just leading a path of righteousness, not always knowing everything, because like in terms of intelligence, neither one of them are the smartest dudes compared to their peers, but to
Yeah, they're not
always have
omniscient. That's true. Yeah.
no, yeah, but that they're self-aware that they don't know everything, but they always find a way to lean towards the positive, where there's places for for the brooding, more pessimistic person. There's plenty of
Hmm.
them, and just to see like them not understanding that, or seeing that as something bad, and like, oh, what, because he's a white dude? I mean, you can instill those character traits into anybody. The perfect example of that was Steel, because Steel was
Yeah.
inspired by Superman.
Very much so. Yeah.
When he asked him how he could be like him, is basically Superman told him to live a righteous life. You- it's
Yeah. It,
it's really kind of sad,
it
because
is. Yeah, and keep in
at,
mind.
at, at a time where comic books are more mainstream than ever, you would think two stalwarts like that would be more present in a good way. Like Thundaro said, Superman doesn't need to be in every issue, but it should feel special when he is.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah. But keep in mind though, Grimlock, that even though they want to tear down the idea of the white male, okay, but even when they do replace that with something that is not white nor male, they don't bring any of the virtue in. There is no virtue in any of their creations. Ironheart, or Riri Williams, is a perfect example of that. She is a villain. She's not a good guy.
Yeah, she's a
Just like in
sociopath.
the right, just like in the Ragnarok movie, Valkyrie is a villain. She's caused the death of we don't even know how many hundreds or thousands of people. We don't know because of the time. You have to keep in mind with that movie that the idea they're giving it is she's been there a long time, decades and decades and decades, maybe even centuries, because the time differential is off in that particular
Right.
little pocket that they're in.
Yeah.
So she's a villain that's caused the death of a lot of people. She's heartless. But what did they do? All of a sudden, okay, well, fine, I'll join you. And then she's now the king of Asgard. It's this kind of thinking. They complain about the white male, but when they replace the white male, they don't bring the virtue into the character at all. This is a
Yeah.
major,
Well,
major issue
I agree.
it's because they don't know how to write it, because these are
because they're
people.
not virtuous.
Well, as
That's right.
as I've as I said before, a lot of today is unfortunately a culture of narcissism and envy.
Yeah, that is true.
It's like, look how many times you've seen that retarded meme of, if Batman just gave all his money to Gotham City, it would actually make things worse.
It would make things far worse because it would just go into the
But
corrupt bureaucrats and
but these
politicians.
people, yeah, and one of the most corrupt places you can imagine, Yeah,
Yep.
let's just give the the Falcone family a couple $1 million
Yeah, sure. Let's do
Right.
that. Yeah. But
because
no,
money will solve everything.
yeah, we see the same foolishness these days with, they relieve my student loan. Why? Right? It's not, well, how do we pay for it? Well, you take it from the rich. Well, we could take every single billionaire's dollar on the planet and it wouldn't pay even the interest on the American debt. Right? It's
Right.
just ignorance. They don't know what they're talking about. They have no virtue. They have no goodness in them. They're just rotten, filthy, lazy, childish
Animals.
people. They're animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why Superman has endured is because his timelessness is the fact that he's virtuous.
Yeah.
That is what the timelessness is. It's not necessarily that he's Kryptonian. It's not necessarily that he has all these great powers and he can do all these
Nope.
amazing things. Those are all nice and cool and all,
Sure.
but it's the fact that he is
Well,
constantly virtuous. There is
Yeah.
not a moment where he falters.
That's
That's why
right.
I hate bad Superman. I hate all of it.
It's
I
dumb.
wish they would
Yeah.
stop it
It's stop it.
because they
well,
completely misunderstand what he is.
Yeah. Go
And
ahead.
it's one of the reasons why. Hang
not
on
just
one
that.
second, Black. Hang on one second. It's one of the reasons why a lot of these characters who are timeless are written by either very religious men or very philosophical men. Men
Sure.
who have a striving for virtue, striving for greater knowledge, for not people who are full narcissists, or at least they if they are narcissistic, they have something about their character that drives them to want to be more than that.
Hmm.
um, these people writing him today that are with all the problems that he was just talking about, they don't have that virtue in them. They don't even have that desire for it. They're not even not virtuous.
They're
That can be overcome.
unaware. They're
They're
ignorant.
anti-virtuous. They're against virtue entirely. It's not even so much that they don't have virtue, it's they don't want virtue. And that is a serious problem if you're going to write an icon, a beacon of
Hmm.
virtue like Superman. Now go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it's not just virtues. Something you're talking about when talking about the student loan forgiveness. It's also a bunch of people who are now grown up, and one of the parts of what makes the heroes good is understanding consequences, which is what many of these so-called creatives um, turn their nose up to, because for the most part they've managed to make it into adulthood without having to suffer consequences for their actions, which is why
Yeah.
many of these people are in favor of student loan debt. Oh, take the consequences of my bad decision off of me.
Right.
No,
No
they
responsibility.
nobody should.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and to write a hero, whether it is a Superman or even a mortal man like Batman, to understand that their consequences have actions. Like you said, with Superman, he has so much power that he he could kill doing something extremely basic, not because he's trying to. It's just because he has that much power innately.
Yeah. That's the
And
juxtaposition of it, right? That's the whole point.
yes,
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Yeah. And like
It,
Thundero
and
said, if you have a guy and you want to make an evil Superman, well, just go take a Candorian.
Yep.
I'm sure
There you
there are
go.
serial killers in there. And have at it. Leave Kal-El alone.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. Wholeheartedly agree. They desperately need to stop with this muddying up Superman's character.
Yeah.
It
No,
does nobody any good. It does nobody any good, right? What is the good gained by injustice? I know a lot of people like injustice, and I get why, but what good is done there
none.
by turning Superman into a villain?
It's useless.
Nothing.
Red
Yeah.
Sun was a much better take on it, actually.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Bright Burn, I get the idea of the movie. I get it.
Yeah.
But and they probably will continue with that. But once again, it's just not Superman. Make it something else. But this argument
Yeah.
is
I
moot because
yeah.
they're not never going to listen because they don't have the concept. That's
That's
one
true.
of the problems with the argument. We sit
Well,
here and
well,
well, no, they really don't. We sit here and we make comments and we talk about all kind of stuff, and that's fine. We're having fun, we're goofing, and it even cathartic in a way. But the thing you have to understand with these so-called progressives, they don't have the concept. They don't understand. It's not even ignorance. It's just beyond their ability. So you're you're
Yeah.
you're really arguing to the wall. There is nothing for them to learn
yeah.
because they're incapable of it. And this is something that I know a lot of people have realized, but everyone needs to understand that there is no debate to have, and that's why there is no common ground anymore. That's why there is no debate happening because it's impossible to have it. These are not the same kind of humans that I grew up with. They're different. They're lacking, and honestly, we failed them because the education system, the parenting, something went really, really wrong in the 90s, dude. Something went
Yeah,
badly wrong. Yeah. So,
I agree. I agree with that last statement implicitly. Something has gone wrong, and I think everybody on both sides of the political spectrum, all sides of it, understand it.
yeah,
They have differing explanations for what that thing is, but there's something wrong
something
with
wrong.
society as a
Yeah,
whole.
yeah, absolutely. But anyway, any last comments, Grimlock?
Sure.
No? Okay. Uh,
Nope.
Um, no, I mean, I think it was a pretty good presentation. I think for a lot of people to understand because I don't, I don't think Superman's greater universe, at least in the comics, I think it's explored as much as the Earthbound stuff and JLA stuff.
sure.
Um, Again, like you said, you if you wanted to do that, you can write other Kryptonians. You can write new
Hmm.
Kryptonians into it and make something interesting. You want to make a more villainous Kryptonian or maybe a more anti-hero-ish
Sure.
Kryptonian. I mean, they're there.
Yeah,
It's there.
you
It's
can do
not
it.
possible. I mean, like as you said in the presentation, they went back to the well of the pod getting hit by a meteorite 3 times.
They
So
did.
Yeah.
They did.
I mean,
Yeah, they did. Yeah. But no, it's true, dude, because,
it
like,
you can go to the pod got hit by a meteorite the fourth time, and then that fourth pod it was a dick.
that's
I
right.
mean,
Yeah, that's true. It's just a dick. Or you could just go to the Candorians, but that's fair. You could do that again.
that too.
But the thing, and this is, I mentioned it with the Kryptonians, but you can make this point with everybody. One of the problems we see a lot with writing today is they take a kernel of something and that's their focus, right? Uh, Jedi power, right?
Yep.
Superpower or whatever it is, and that's not how you write. That's not what a writer does. This is flavor. What they do is they take a human, a person, even if they're
That's
alien,
right.
because we can't conceive of something beyond ourselves. That's not how our brains work. Therefore, you start with the human and you tell a story with it, and you pepper in your power as flavor. And they don't do that. Everything we're seeing is being written like Kylo Ren, perfect example. What is
Oh god.
his concept? Angry young force user. That's it. There is no human aspect to him. Now, to be
Right.
fair, Driver is a good actor and he tried to add some of that, but he's working against the actual system, right?
Right.
Daisy Ridley has no capability of doing that. I'm not knocking on her. She's just not a super awesome actress. She doesn't have the ability to do something on her own. So she's just doing what they told her to do. And you have this banal, cardboard, boring character because her concept was very simple: the better Luke Skywalker. That's it. They didn't
Yes.
start with a story about who this Ray character is and then later on add the adjective of force power, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem across the board with everything we're seeing these days. They don't know how to write because they're not writing human stories. They're writing
They're barely
concepts.
writing humans. Yeah, they're
Well,
barely
you know what I
writing
mean.
humans at all.
They've
Yeah.
lost the
Well,
idea
one of the
of it, the
things
understanding.
one of the things, if you look, like you're correct, completely correct. One of the things, if you look, pretty much every course that'll teach you how to write a character,
Yep.
they will start with who is this character? Not what is this character? Who is this character?
That's right. That's right.
And you go through their characteristics as a person, not just their physical characteristics. Those come typically those come secondary. But is this character a coward? Is this character bold? Is this character a liar? Is this character, very honest and forthright and da da da? All different personality characteristics. You should start with their personality before you get to everything else, because now a person is their personality. Hence the word. That's where you should start with, because that is the first mover of everything else. It doesn't really matter what they look like necessarily, other than how they react to how other people treat them, how they look, if that's the kind of story you're telling. But that is the first mover. First mover should always be their virtues, their vices,
what they are,
who they are. If you take everything else away, who they would be when they're all alone. That's where you learn who you really are, and that's why a lot of people don't like being alone. Because they don't like themselves.
Yeah. Well, no, it's very important. This isn't a new idea. Homer, how did he introduce Achilles to us? Did he's like, oh, he's this amazing fighter? No, he didn't. He was actually a little boy being cowed by his mother. Right. Go back to the story of Inanna and the death of Dumuzi, which is, we're going way back. Right. Once again, this mega powerful goddess, of course you would probably know her better as Venus, is being cowed for her failure, right? Because those stories are written from the point of view of who they are in their character, and then the godly aspect or the amazing fighting ability and leadership or whatever is added later. So this concept has been around literally for thousands of years, literally. And here in our most modern, amazing modern time, these idiots can't do anything but talk about force power, because that's all they do, and then how gay the force power is.
Or
that's all they can do.
Yeah, talk about ridiculous characteristics of like their sexuality or their race, or
that's not who
they're looking through this lens. No, that's not who you are. Mm-hmm. That might be who you wish you could be or something, maybe, or that's who you want to present yourself as. But take that away from you. Then who are you?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you don't have an answer to that question, you shouldn't be writing any character, especially not Superman.
Oh no, that's true. But once again, if who you are is your sexuality, dude, you're fucked.
Yes. Maybe literally.
Well, you know what I mean. My God.
Yeah, that's a very shallow aspect of your humanity.
Yeah.
Very shallow. And maybe that's all you are, is a very shallow human. And you know what? That's fine. You're allowed to be a shallow human. But you need to be honest with yourself. You need to look in that mirror and realize that's who you are.
No one's going to follow you down that dark hole, though. No one of a consequence anyway. Nevertheless, I do need to end it here. So great show. I really enjoyed today. That was a lot of fun. Finally, we talked about Superman, dude.
Yes, and it's worth it.
And he is worth it. But thank you all very much. Keep in mind, tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be doing, I am going to be doing session 1 or episode 1. I did session 0 last week of my Imperious campaign that I'm running. If you're interested in that, come on back. And of course, we will be doing something for Drawn and Quartered, of course, this week. Which is awesome. Do appreciate you. Thank you very much, Grimlock, for coming in. And of course, all of you guys coming in and sharing and listening. Hope you had a good time. Thundero, take us out of here.
I have 2, both of which are very quick. One is from Jordan B. Peterson.
Ooh.
Dr. Peterson himself. It's one of the best quotes, I think, probably his best one.
Lobsters.
It's a heart. No, it's not about lobsters. Well, it kind of actually is about lobsters. But it goes very well with Superman, what we were talking about. His greatest asset is his control, his greatest ability. A harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very, very dangerous man who has it under voluntary control. That's what Superman is. My own version of that is, on occasion, brutality is just another form of beauty. Virtue is not exactly gentle.
Namaste. Later, everybody.
Bye-bye.